I have just finished my fourth conversation with Reddy, and it is such a treat to be in the presence of someone who is so curious and playful and willing to be curious and playful, inviting that and going into play, going into intimacy, going into touch. Mm. We ended on a note of, or connection is basically what this conversation has been about, centering on from different aspects, but coming back to connection. And Reddy said something at the end about gratitude being a sense of awareness of connection. Like, that one's good. So he'll be mulling that one over. I'll be mulling that one over. Maybe you will too, but listen to the conversation so that you know how he came to that proposal, perhaps. I hope you enjoy. I'm sure. I know that I do.
Just noticed the painting in the background. I hadn't noticed this all this while.
It hasn't been there all this while. It
Oh,
has been there since see it's a bear, or it's actually two bears. I put it up in December,
uh-huh.
but I got it from Steve, who is also one of the people that I speak to in this season 2. Um, he drew that, I think it started a year ago,
Mhm.
and he was finished in April or something. And then uh, he needed to take it down, and he asked me if I wanted it. And I love them. I mean, it's like it's such a big painting in kind of a small room. So those bears are now like they are a presence in my house.
Oh, that's incredible. I mean, like,
Yeah.
I was just like, it just struck me that, when you said that he started painting and took a while, I just realized that painting is one of those things that you actually work with in layers, right? It's almost like like you start do one layer, then you're done with that, and come back, look at it, and then you add another layer to it, and sometimes that could completely change what you started off with, right? Wow.
And you
It,
wouldn't believe, because I have the pictures from Steve about this, and you
Mhm.
would not believe the number of layers underneath this one that are completely different. Because there wasn't a bear to start with.
Wow.
Then there was a bear with a tent on its back. Then there was a bear with a city in the, and then no tent, and then another bear appeared. It's like, so it's shifted. So I'm glad that you said this, because I have been meaning to do a blog post about the story of the bears,
Mhm.
and Steve has graciously granted me permission to use his the images. So I will write that piece so that people can get to see, because like you say, I look at this and I go, oh wow, it's just amazing. But when I look at the transformation from what it started with, and what happened in the meantime, it just baffles me. Um because he didn't know this. Or at least that's how Steve does his painting. He didn't know that this is what wanted to happen, but this is what wanted to happen. And it's just, yeah, it's amazing. Um,
Incredible. 'Cause
yeah, it is kind of incredible. And it's like, I don't really know if well, I guess. in a sense, it is similar to most of what I write because I don't know what it wants to be, but it doesn't take on as physical, literal, visual stages of transformation. You know, it's a sentence here or a word there, or it was 300 words and then it turns into 400 words. You know, it's not this, the transformation of the bears painting is just, it's so clear. It's so obvious when you look at the different stages that these are different stages. But
And
cool.
you know, it's almost like you take snapshots in time. Like I was just thinking about this a while ago about how I absolutely have no sense of past compared to most people because I have what I like to call a very good memory is one that doesn't remember anything. It's like I barely remember the places I've been to, the experiences I've had in my life. Because I feel like there's an intense, you know, experience of that at the moment. And then I just allow it to soak in and it just seeps into every part of me and then it just disappears. I don't have a memory left behind from that experience. Right. And if it's almost like the memory, like having to carry those memories along with me feels like effort. Right. And
Mm,
like letting go of those memories makes my journey so much lighter, freer, and I'm never comparing something with something that happened in the past, right? It's like whether it's a good memory, whether it's a bad memory, like I rarely have strong memories of nostalgia, of some sort of trauma, which says, oh, this happened. And like, it's constantly like peeking over the shoulder saying, oh my God, remember that time. Like whether it's a good memory, whether it's a bad memory, I rarely, if ever, have that thing behind. So I wonder if I've forgotten. It's like the painting. Like I've forgotten the layers that's gone into making who I am today, right? And it's not that I haven't enjoyed the process. I've thoroughly enjoyed the process, but now when I look at the painting that is me, I don't see the I don't see the layers. I mean, like I, it's
and this is so fascinating because I think I am the very total opposite. It's like, shit, I have good memories, especially from the past, like from since since 99, since I made my shift. It's like, so it's almost half of my life, not yet. Before that, it's shadier. And my childhood, up until I'm 10, not really that much memory. But but I am good, and I don't know how good it is. I am good at this comparing to what happened, what was that time, me then, I did that divorce versus this divorce. It's like I can do that, but I don't. I no longer use that as a super tool to beat myself up. So I don't use it to gauge myself against something that I did in the past and say, "Oh man, you've gotten so bad. You were much better then. You should." It's like, so I rarely use it that way. I use it more as kind of as the bear painting. It's like, "Oh, wow. Was I like that then? Oh man, and now like this? Wow, what a difference." Um, but it's like, how does that happen? How do you turn into one who doesn't? And how do I turn into one who does? What is that?
I don't know because this is something that it actually started with. I was sometime last year. I was thinking like when I started writing a blog, I wanted to how do I create a blog where every version of the blog post remains there for people to see, so they can go back through like a snapshot of. this is the final published version. You go back a step and you go back a step, you go back a step, and you can actually come right back with the outline or the title of the blog post. And I wanted to share the entire process, right? And technologically, I wasn't sure how to go about it. I threw it around with a few people, and we couldn't really make any headway into actually figuring out how to make this happen. So I just let it be. But in my head, I feel like, it's like very often it's probably to do with the way I write. Like today, now, when I write, I have absolutely no process of creating. I sit down, I start writing, I just put the words out. I don't even do an edit. There's no basic edit, none whatsoever, right? It's just like a stream of consciousness. It starts, it ends, and then I hit publish, and then boom, right? So, and I'm like, okay, so I just kind of like, I think it's almost like that's probably how I'm living my life, and I have lived my life. It's just, I'm like, I never tried to improve the iterations, and, I'm like, okay, this is version one. Now I can try to make it better. I try to better, I try to make it better. And I'm just realizing now that this is something that I have not been doing with my life. Like when I saw the painting, it actually struck me because when I made my first painting, my first oil on canvas painting, it took me 2 weeks to make that painting, right? So base layer, and then you wait for that to dry, and then depends on the climate. And if it's hot enough, you can start in a day or so, and then go another layer, and then you wait again, another layer, and then you add. It's like eventually, by the time you complete, you know that there's so many
Mm.
layers of paint, and each when you look at it as an artist, you look at it and you're like, oh, I get it, right? I know the layers that's gone into it. But when the onlooker or the anyone else who's seeing the painting, they don't see the layers. They don't get it. Like they just see the final output. They don't see what it's taken, the processes, the snapshots of time that it's gone through into making that paint. And I think of it as my own life feels kind of the same. Others, when they see me, they don't know the experiences that's gone into making this person who he is, right? And it's almost like I have taken that same experience as well. When I look at myself, I'm looking at myself not as the person who went through those experiences, but as a third person who's looking and saying, "Oh, so this is Reddy," and like it's like this is Reddy's life, right? And I don't seem to spend much time in nostalgia. Like when I look back, I'm like, "Oh, so even the last trip we spoke about, the Himalayan trip, it's gone. It's not even there in my head now. Like I'm like, what? It was just barely a month ago." And it's just like I have to really put a lot of effort if I have to dredge out those memories and think about it and like what happened. And like, I don't even look at the pictures. Like, I got all those pictures. I made a few notes on the way. I drew a few drawings along the way. They're there. Some of them are shared, some of them are online, and some of them are not. But I haven't been going back
Mm.
to look at that again, right? And I'm already, if anything, most of my energy goes into what else? Okay, so where's my next trip? How am I going to go? So I decided my next trip is going to be a motorbiking trip. So I'm going to get a motorbike and then I'm going to ride down and not going to go into like really cold places, but it's up in the mountains through forests and all of that. So it's going to be more like a off-roading, dirt biking kind of a scenario. So I'm already spending all of my energy in the forward direction, right? And I've forgotten about what's happened in the past.
So, one, I'm really happy then that we had that conversation because your trip to the Himalayas is there. It's like we got something, and I like that, and it made me really really happy. My friend Vanessa, who lives in New Zealand, she put us on and had us as company as she was cooking dinner one day. And that makes me so happy, especially happy because I know that she has had quite similar experience to you in the Himalayas with, the same type of the belly and the air and so that was I like that. I like those little snapshots that are there. Maybe not for you, but for others.
Mm.
And let's see, what else did I think? You said, oh, yeah. So I was thinking, In my work, I worked in the pharmaceutical industry for, uh, well, it'll be 25 years, even though I do a lot of other work too. But that's like my basic industry. And I've been doing work in the pharma industry that requires a lot of rewriting. I've written reports and I've written plans and I've written test procedures. I've written standard operating procedures. I've written user requirement specification. God knows I've written documents. And my my process when it comes to writing these documents is kind of like what you described that you wanted your blog to be. It's like I want it to be um not that you can go back and see everything, but that I don't sit and write and write and write and write and get it done with bunny ears and then share it wanting feedback. It's like, no, from the get-go, okay, I've drafted the document. There's a title and maybe a few headings. I want to be in a collaborative process with other people who are also helping me write it or who are at least helping me put feedback into it, what should go into it. And it's a very iterative process. And, I like writing, right? I enjoy the writing that I do privately or personally more than enjoy this type of standard operating procedure writing. But it's fun to write. I do like writing, but it's a constant evolution. I've written enormous amounts of user requirement specifications, and in a project I'm working, we're just in the process of again revisiting or adding on a few more user requirement specifications that we need. And we always look back at what have we got? Can we, take that as the template and build on it? And however happy we were with a user requirement specification that we finished a month or two ago, revisiting it is like, huh, why did we write that? That doesn't really make sense. Isn't this what we mean? So we're constantly making them a little bit better version than the one that just was. And it makes me curious how much of that, the line of work that I've been in, how much has that influenced me as a person, me, Helena? How much has that influenced me and how I am in the world as me? Not in professional settings, but just as I am. Because
There's
I
like
don't think you've been working in the pharmaceutical industry as a validation engineer writing documents, but maybe you have.
no, but I love the idea of this user manual, right? Like I was tripping on this idea of the personal user manual, and I was trying to write it last year, but I left it halfway through. I didn't complete it. But I realized that if I were to offer myself as a machine for other people to use, right? I'm a very simple machine. I'm the kind of person that offers, as a machine, I offer one of the things that makes me a very simple person or simple machine to use is that I give you instant feedback, right? It's one of those machines that you press a button and then you don't have to wonder what's going to happen. It's very obvious. The response is immediate. The response is obvious. The feedback is very clear. It's not very confusing, and it doesn't take a long time to figure me out, right? And that's the kind of person that I like to think I am. That it's like what you see is what you get, right? What you see on the outside, the personality, the person, how I speak, how I come across, the way I dress. It's very similar to who I am inside. And it's very similar to who I am inside of me, right? Like in terms of even the clothes I'm wearing, reflect the mood I'm in at that point of time when I chose to wear those clothes. So today, if I'm wearing something dark, it's because I'm not in the best of spirits because I was physically unwell for a while for the last week. So, and if I'm really wearing something exuberant, neon and bright, oh my God, this guy's having a great day. So I'm really intrigued with this idea because I think that there is a part of me that can really do that well as well, like document things, put it across, create some sort of protocols, procedures. This is how things are done. This is how things are followed, and it's. I wonder if I can use that with myself, and it's. I also wonder if that's actually happening in the background. If I don't think about it, maybe I'm not doing it consciously, but it's happening just like when we spoke the last time, I spoke about that episode where I had this scare of doing drugs surrounded by a room where I was, seeing people doing drugs, but I didn't want to do it, but didn't want to run away either. And that was a past memory of a time where I had suffered due to the consequences of my actions and my choices. And that kind of memory had seared in so deeply and so strongly that it came up to the fore, right? And there are very few such memories which have real potent implications on how I make my choices in the present moment. But that's just in relation to my level of awareness at that moment. For all I know, most of my choices must be happening with some sort of subconscious or unconscious processing based on my experiences in the past, right? Just because I'm not aware of them or just because I think I'm not making those decisions based on things that happened in the past and the fact that I don't tend to, have a very strong memory and keep looking backward, it just may be that I don't have a strong conscious, but unconsciously or subconsciously, things are all happening. They're looking up the documents, they're looking up the past, protocol charts. Oh my God, this is what we did last time. This failed. So, maybe we don't do this, right? And I just don't realize it. I'm just like, oh, yeah, we're going to do something. But in the background, all of this is happening real time. Because
That's such a funny. I get this image of a little validation engineer running around desperately inside of me going, where's that protocol? The last one, where is it? I know there was a deviation there somewhere. What can I do to make sure that that doesn't happen again? Oh, yeah, this one, right? Oh, oh, that's a fun image.
But I think it's really cool that that happens because I do feel like there are parts of ourselves which are like clearly very process driven, except that we're not aware that this process is happening, right? Which is why, the whole concept of Lindy and things being, like 10,000 years ago, this is how we did it. And, that's why we're still doing it this way. It's possible. I mean, it's like that's what the genetic encoding does in each one of us, right? We don't necessarily have to be aware of it. Like, like even if you look at machines, there's a certain part of the machine that can be programmed on a regular basis, programmed, reprogrammed, unprogrammed, and there's a part of the machine like which is embedded, and that part cannot be changed. Like the BIOS cannot be changed. Certain part of the embedded base level operating system cannot be changed. Yeah, you can program applications and things on top of that, and plugins
Mm.
and etc. etc. But there's certain parts which we cannot change, which are just deeply embedded and aren't likely to change unless you completely destroy it and rebuild from scratch. Get a brand new machine, which is completely different from the old one, right?
Mm.
So wonder how much of our actions in the present day moment, at least mine, is based on what, is like some sort of like, genetic encoding, some sort of ancestral, I don't know. I mean, it's like maybe like, if you look at families growing up, the parents have certain desires which are unfulfilled and then they try to get their kids to do that. Oh, you know what? I wanted to be a race car driver. When I was a teen and I couldn't do it, I had to become an accountant. But you know what? I'm going to send you to racetrack school where you can learn to be a driver and you can win the Formula One championship, right? And like we see that, that's very clear to see that one generation trying to pass on their dreams to the other generation. Like I'm just wondering, imagine if there were like 10 generations behind, some ancestor had some unfulfilled dream or desire, and like a ghost, that dream of desire is
Is
constantly
keeps
being pushed from generation to generation, and somehow 10 generations ahead, that desire comes to life in the form of that individual. How crazy was
Yeah, and I don't think it is crazy. I don't, it's like that's what happened. And I mean, I'm gonna butcher this totally, but Dominic, um, in Buddhist by the Roadside podcast, a number of times he's been speaking about how, um, you see birds, blackbirds in the UK that all of a sudden start to do this thing, figure out how to open the cap on the milk bottles or standing out on the pavement, weird things that is like, this isn't what a bird should be doing, right? And all of a sudden, birds all over freaking the UK are doing this thing. But it's like, there's no way that anybody from that little congregation of birds it seeps out into the field, into the common subconscious that we are all sharing. It's like, it does happen. Do we know how it happens? No, we don't. Would people say you're crazy? Yes, that's also what happens, right? But it's like that also because this thing of the field of everything that is and how things, ideas, emotions, there's sharing going on, even though we don't know how that sharing is going on and what is being shared even perhaps, right? But there is a sharing going on and just the notion to think that it's not going on because I can't, with the using the scientific methods of today, figure it out means that it's not there. No, I don't believe that. It's like, yeah, sure, with the scientific methods of today, you won't be able to figure this out because you don't know how to measure it, how to know what it is, how to, gauge it and track it and whatnot. That does not mean it doesn't exist. It just means that we can't figure it out using the methods of today or the tools of today. Tomorrow, who knows? And I had a session with Dominic Monday where I woke up Monday morning having had the weirdest ass dream, a horrible, horrible dream. I was chased and I was not alone, and there were like stealth ninja warriors chasing us down, and they were stabbing me to death with knives and swords, but you couldn't really see the knives and swords, but I was dying, I was dead, and then, it's like that happened, and then, you know, wind back the tape, and I could watch myself how I tried to get away from these freaking ninja warriors. It was just a weird ass dream. I woke up thinking, man, I need to stop. I need to write a new ending for this dream. I don't want that. I wake up, all my heart's, you know, pounding, and I'm, in this dream. I come into a big, like, orangerie, like a greenhouse type thing, wall of glass. On the other side, a fence, and then a garden to freedom. Where if I could only get on the other side of that glass and that fence, I'd be in the garden of freedom. It's like, so I'm looking at the wall, trying to get to somehow I have to, ninja warriors coming and heart pounding and like shit. And this sense of being on the wrong side. I'm inside, I need to be outside, or on that other side, freedom lies. On this side, it's certain death. And it was just horrible. And all of a sudden, he helped me to turn around and look at the universe instead. Instead of like, I need to get away, just, okay, calm down, So inhalation, exhalation, longer exhalation, so that my nervous system was like down regulating into, okay, I'm not terrified here. I'm not fight or flight mode, right? Turning around, it's like, oh, there's calm here, just the weirdest sense. And all of a sudden, it wasn't inside and outside. It was all a field of everything's fine. It's fine in here too, where I am. It's fine. And I'm also on that out in that garden at the same time. So it's like these two different versions of reality where it's like that inside outside, back and forth, left and right, up and down. Here I am, there you are, and we are separate entities. It's like that's one part of reality. And it's a reality that we're very used to because it's constantly pushed. But this other reality where there's no back and forth, there's no up and down, there's no left and right, there's no me and you, it just is. It's the field. What you are feeling, I can feel. What I am thinking, you can think is like because we are, and just all of a sudden, just this flow between these two states and over in that field state, just this enormous sense of calm, um, which I think is that place where the blackbirds learn because they are one, right? It's like that is where that thing that we can't describe, that we can't measure, that we can't put our finger on, but it is not real.
It's almost like every experience you are going through is something that I'm going through as well. It's just that I'm not aware. It's like, what is my radius of awareness, right? Is my radius of awareness just limited to this physical body? As I feel pain, I feel pleasure, I feel something, I experience something, that's about it. That's something that I identify as myself and as my own experience, right? But it's, I'm wondering if this is why we want to interact with someone else, like want to have like a soulmate, a partner, a lover. Like, is it just to experience breaking out, or rather expanding the level of awareness and experience to that of another individual? Now, another person is a part of that same circle of
Mm.
experience and influence where everything you're feeling, I'm feeling, everything I'm experiencing, you're experiencing. And now, right? And then when we make a family, that circle grows a little bigger. And then, we spoke about the community a bunch of times, the whole idea of it takes a village, right? And the whole village and the whole community now starts identifying as we feel pain, you get hurt, we feel it. We feel happy and everyone feels it, right? Like the expanding awareness and expanding sense of influence. And it's like it can include plants, it can include animals, it can include everything on the planet. Like if I'm lying down at the top of cold water, like it's like I am sharing that energy. The water of the cold water is making me feel cold, and my heat, body heat, is making the water feel warm. Right? There's an exchange of energy between all elements. It's like I think, oh, the wind is passing by and it's ruffling my hair and I'm feeling it. The wind must be feeling the same way. It must be like, oh, I'm passing through this guy's hair, right? And it's an
Yeah. Oh, how
experience.
fun. Yeah.
Yeah. And I love that idea. It's like this is why I like to, get a lot of experience and understanding through conversation, through live interaction, more than reading from books. Because I always feel like books are awesome, but they're just so unidimensional because I'm trying to get experience from the experience of another individual without having actually interacted with that individual in some manner. Like when I have the same interaction with you on this call, I can see you, I can see the nuances of the expressions on your face and, your body making certain movements, gestures, and everything. I can feel the emotion when you say something, right? I feel like I'm trying so hard to not try to limit my, experience gathering through books, right? Rather, I'd like it to be through an interactive experience where I listen, where I speak, where I hear, and I want that for the other person as well. Like even a YouTube video just doesn't do the same thing because the other person doesn't know I'm watching, and that makes a world of difference, right? Like, is it possible that even in a webinar or something of that sort where you're not really interacting with each person but the other person knows, they can see the expressions, the emotions, or oh, this person's bored, this person's not, this person's super interested. That feedback mechanism, I feel like, is so powerful, and I want to treasure that. I want to cherish that. I want, I feel like I'm so happy that this digital medium offers that real time interaction. And I think there's absolutely no substitute. I don't think books do it. I don't think any form of one way dissemination of information can ever, do away with that real time interaction where people are getting feedback. And even if nobody speaks, there is feedback. You can feel the energy. It's palpable, right? You can sense, you can read the room, you can say, oh my God, I think I'm really boring everyone. Oh my God, look at that. Everyone's so rapt with attention. And I feel like that's so important. That's so important to feel that energy. Like it's the same thing. That's how, like, this energy may just, for me, with my limited awareness, it may just depend on this room that we're in. It may just depend on the fact that visually I need to see you. It may depend on the fact that spatially we need to be in the same room. But it could also expand to the sense where I'm a bird who's, learning how to, take it out from the milk can, and someone else who is of my same species or something is sensing that, oh, new skill uploaded. Let's go try it
Yep,
out now.
yep, yep. And I mean, it's yes, I agree with you. And I have I don't have the bandwidth to get the input I want, that I crave. An input, in Strengths Finder, input is like my number one. It's like, but I don't have the bandwidth, the resource. I'm not resourced enough to take in all that I want to take in a day in one on one interactions because they also take from me. So for me, yes, I love this. And the last year, the last 2 years, especially the last 1 year, I would say my need for being physically in the same room has not been met. I need more of that, definitely. Luckily, I have this type of one on one, so I'm not without one on ones. Otherwise, I would be totally drained. But I do need more in the physical body realm. And I also do love to read books and feel that I can get something in there. I do listen to podcasts. I rarely watch videos. I can watch a documentary or I can watch a series and stuff, but somehow something happens um, within me when I do take in that more non one-on-one direct, but it's like or the other one, the book, the documentary, the podcast is not in that form a physical person, in the same sense. And it's like, I can see how that's a that's a again, like the mixer table, it's like, okay, a little bit more bass here and a little bit less treble over here, and we need some more of this over here. It's like it is a shifting um pattern or like settings. It's like I don't have one setting and this is good to go for every day. It's like, no, it varies because I can have a need for just me time when I sit and I mend my jeans and it's like, I don't want to talk to anybody, right? And then it's like, oh, I really need to talk to somebody, or I really need a hug right now because I need to feel that physical response, right? I need to feel that, okay, here's somebody who really loves to hug or loves to hug me, and I can feel it, So it does give me different types of nutrients that nourish me in different ways. I need all of the types of nutrients, but some more than others. The way that nutrients are. We need more vitamin D than we need trace amounts of zinc or whatever. Um,
I wonder if that's why we the phrase "I'm going to curl up with the book" comes in, right? I'm going to curl up with the book. It just feels so intimate. It feels so
yeah,
warm. Feels so personal, and it feels like a cocooned experience.
yeah,
Like I'm now inside of the book, right? And uh,
yeah. And it's like not every book is like that.
mm,
Not every book invites that, or I don't let them, or whatever. But it's like, but some books are just like that. It is a warm. I'm actually reading. I've just have 30, 40 pages left of Braiding Sweetgrass by Robin Wall Kimmerer, Native American biologist, botanist, whatever she is. It's a lovely book, but she, that book is one of those. I am so curled up here, and I've been curling up. Whenever I pick it up, it's like just this warm embrace, and it is a physical sense. Whereas other books are like, yeah, no. There's like they are like one of those, you go and you hug somebody and they're like stiff and it's like, oh, this is uncomfortable. I do really want to be this close to you. Can you please just get off? Or they kind of tentatively pat you a little bit on the back and you can, okay, this is not a hugger, which is fine,
yeah,
right? But if I am in the mood for a hug, it's like I really want a hugger around. Then I can pick up that type of book, or I can go to a friend of mine that I know is a hugger, right? And get uh, that nourishment that I need in the moment, which speaks to that circle of awareness.
a circle of it's like I don't know. I could almost interchange all of these words: awareness, influence, experience, compassion, love. Like, what's the radius of my circle, right?
Yeah.
Like, how much am I willing to open up that circle to let people in? I mean, like, that's something easy to think of. We always think of the circle as a border, as a boundary that protects us, right? And we use it to distance others, like, this is my social distancing circle, stay away, sort of a thing. So, but I also wonder if it's less of a border which is designed to keep people out and keep me safe, and more of a horizon that keeps expanding as I keep looking towards. If I keep looking, you know, only within what's happening, the circle doesn't expand. But the more I look, oh, what's there? Oh, what's there? Oh, what's there? The more I look, right, the more my circle expands, right? Because it's like the horizon. It's like it's you never reach the horizon. Just like, it's that it's constantly inspiring you to go further and further and further. Like you never, ever, ever reach the horizon, right? Like I feel like
Mm,
that's the beauty of the circle. Like it can constantly keep growing. It constantly keeps enticing me to move, to be curious of what's on the other side. And it's not even the other side. It's just what lies ahead. It's like, what haven't I experienced yet? Right? Because I mean, like growing up, I've always been one of those people who's like, oh, I want to experience everything. I mean, like a lot of people think, oh, you were just a kid who didn't know what you were getting into. You got the drugs and you had a bad deal. I'm like, no, no, no. I knew it. I mean, I was a voracious reader. I'd read up all about the drugs, what they do to you, what the effects are, what side effects are, how it's a social disaster, how, every aspect of it. I'd read through everything. I knew it, but the experience was
mm,
too good to listen to rational thought that says this is bad for you. I was like, maybe it's bad, but it's an experience I haven't had. You're looking at the moral aspect, you're looking at the result oriented aspect of whether it's good or bad, whether it's going to hurt others, whether it's going to hurt me, right? But I'm just looking at it as something new. It's not something that is currently in my circle, but it's lies beyond, it's on the other side, and I'm going to keep chasing it, chasing it, chasing it. And that's exactly how I look at it now. Like, it doesn't have to be a question of, you know, don't talk to strangers, don't go beyond the border, don't go to the other side. Like they always drawing borders and boundaries which kind of confine us. And I wonder if that's one way of keeping us safe, but that's also one way of ensuring that our circle doesn't expand beyond what it is. How do we keep this circle border some sort of a permeable experience, right? Like it's some sort of an osmosis that goes on. So anything on the other side, I experience as well. And, so the more we all need to have our own boundaries, but how do we keep these boundaries or these borders permeable, like semi permeable in such a way that, I feel what you feel what I feel, right? And how do we expand this? How do we, and it's not even a question of why, it's just probably like, this is why. Like if you think of the whole breathing thing, it's like breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out. I wonder if that's my circle of, experience. I take a deep breath. I may think that the air is just within this much, right? It's just like 6 inches from my nose, air goes in, and then it comes out, right? Just up to here. What if I start imagining that this entire room, each breath I take in, there's air coming in from every corner of the room inside of my lungs? What if I now imagine that it comes from garden right into my nose and then goes back out? What if I think that it comes from the entire country? I'm breathing in the air from the entire continent into my lungs and right? Like as an exercise, as a meditative, contemplative exercise, it's so trippy. Just imagine with each breath, my existence, my experience is expanding across miles and miles and miles and miles. And this is just not this little tiny little cooped up me that, is just like, when you think of, when you said, you were taking those deep breaths. And I wonder if that's how it is. The circle pulsates with a very shallow movement. And that's when we feel all tight or caught up or anxious and worried, tense. And the more the circle expands and contracts with a large amplitude, the more we feel relaxed. There's nothing to worry. The circle is, we're safe and it doesn't matter. Everything is good.
So it was like this just pops a gazillion things, but the first one is the cell, you know, the cell membrane. I have a master's in biology. One of my favorite courses was the course I took a semester in human physiology that was really, really good and really, really interesting. And, when you're kind of younger, you get to know that there's a cell and it has a cell membrane and it's like we draw it as a round circle and it's on the inside or the outside, etc. But I mean the buildup of these fatty acid cell membranes that are semi-permeable, that are, they're just an intricate engineering wonder of chemical engineering somehow, of how they are, how the fatty part of it faces outside and inside, and then there's the little tails of them going in, and how they can just, let a molecule come in when there's a molecule that needs to come in, or let a little bit of waste go out when there's a little bit of waste that needs to go out. So they are they are precisely that. They are a semi-permeable membrane or boundary that is extremely flexible and extremely strong, but it's just so that was the thing that I was thinking about. And again, I think this is when we look at ourselves and life, it's like, look at how we do it actually. Look at my cells. Look at how plants does it. It's like the answer, if there's such a thing as an answer, is there, or there's at least inspiration. You can find a metaphor that works for these things. But I think the problem is fundamentalism. Fundamentalism in a cell membrane world would mean freezing it in place so that nothing can go in or out because no, I don't want that. And no, it's like, and all of a sudden there is no semi-permeableness left and it will die. That cell will die because it won't be able to work anymore. But that's kind of what the rigidity, if you have a rigid boundary, you are not curious about, you know, what might happen to this boundary? Where does it come from? How does it serve me? Does it still serve me today? Or, does it still serve me tomorrow? There's a new question to ask. It's like that's part of the beauty of that, I think. And if you're engaging with your boundaries that way, I think that they will, you know, horizon and oh yeah, no, coming closer because of something that's going, like you said, I've been physically unwell. Okay, time to retract this boundary a little bit. I don't have the energy and the wherewithal and the resources to be out there on the horizon chasing the end of the rainbow. It's like, no, that's not today, right? Today we need to bring it home. Um, which is also what cells do. If there's a high level of concentration of one molecule inside, they will even that out by sending stuff in and out through osmosis. So they will even it out. If you have a waterlogged cell with too little concentration, it will be evened out. It will draw in. I need to have more potassium, more sodium, or whatever it is that you need that you're lacking of because you have too much water right now. Um, so this, movement, life, right? Life. It's like it's the movement that's the thing.
So happy with this visual of the cell because it's just like when I think of myself, it's like the smallest aspect of me is myself, right? It's like a single cell organism became this multi-cell organism, right? So myself is nothing but myself, right? Like all
Mhm.
together. And I've been tripping on this this metaphor of thinking of myself as a bag, as a plastic bag filled with water, right? Because we are like, what, 70%, 80% liquid,
Water.
fluid,
Mhm.
right? And like, so I've been thinking of myself, I've been like walking around, thinking around, like every time I move, I imagine if I, rather than think of myself as muscular, skeletal, structure, rigid, and muscular, and like, what if I were to think of myself as a bag, as a plastic bag filled with water, and like it sloshes around every step I take, every move I make, I'm just sloshing around, right? And you will not believe how much more relaxed I feel, how
Mm.
little tension I feel, how less my body aches and pains, the joints, just by visualizing myself like this. And now I'm going to like upgrade that visualization by thinking of it as a large, semi permeable bag rather than a plastic membrane carrying water. I'm going to think of it as semi permeable, which can allow the water to flow in and out and can feel, what's happening on the outside. It's not an inanimate object, it's like
Mm.
something that's exchanging information with the environment while still sloshing around.
Which is, I've been fascinated with fascia for the last 2.5, 3 years, something like that.
Mhm.
Um, which also is, I think, is just that, you know, the fluid that we are is fascia because it's inside of the cells and it's in between every cell and it's in instant communication. And one single cell organisms don't need that. As soon as you have a two-cell organism, fascia in
Ooh.
between. Interstitial fluid is one way to say it
Mhm.
because those two cells need to communicate. And it is a little bit like going back to that field. It's like if you talk to scientists today, medical scientists and doctor and professors of this, that, and the other thing, there is so little known about fascia. There's a lot of research going on and it's fascinating, but there's so little going on. And it is, again, I think, Western medicine is like, oh no,
Mm.
oh no, everything is linked together. Oh no, because I want to treat the heart over here and the stomach over here and the liver over here. And here we have a broken bone and not think about it. But if you're in a car crash and you get a whiplash, that fascia, you might get back pains or heel problems because you were in that, you got that jolt from a crash or something. That will impact, more of you than just what got oh, yeah, I felt it in my neck. Yeah, but it's all over. And we need to look at it as that. We need to respect that field in a sense. It's like step a little bit away from this. Here's the neck, here's the spine, here's the stomach, here's the liver and the spleen and the feet and the scalp. It's like they are all together in this. Yeah.
I mean, it's incredible, right? Like just to think of the fact that why is it so hard to imagine that everything is connected? Everyone is connected. All our thoughts, all our ideas, all our emotions, all our everything is connected. Like, it's like I actually have to remind myself that I'm connected. Like, it's like, just like you said, it's like a certain part of me is hurting, and I have to think, oh, okay, like this could be connected with how I'm feeling in my mind. It could be connected with something I hurt myself in the past. It could be connected locally, or it could be connected, from somewhere else, but it's just manifesting in a certain location. It could be connected with something that I'm, with the environment. Maybe, there's something in the air. It could be something I've eaten, right? It could be the person I'm with. I'm not liking that person, and this is how it's manifesting. There's so many things happening, right? And they're all connected. just knowing and feeling that all of this is connected, I just, I mean, I don't even have to find the connection. I just have to allow, like you said, the cell has its own wisdom, which tells the cell time to get more potassium or time to let go of, of enough water we're carrying. We're carrying too much, let go of it and get some more of salts. It's the same thing. Like I don't have to do anything. It's almost like it's effortless that, but all I need to do is let it happen, right?
Mm,
Like somehow it feels like rather than me having to do something to see the connections, I just, have to let the connections manifest in their own way. And then before,
mm,
I don't even like, need to make the connections. Connections are there, they're being
mm.
made. I just need to let them flow effortlessly away. You know, like that's why I've been like really tripping out on this whole liquid thing, like because as an individual, as a physical body, like my manifestation is that this is me, this is my body. I wake up in the morning, the aches and pains, I'm walking around today, there's things I'm doing, I stub my toe on something, like this constant reminding me, the environment's constantly reminding me that this is my body, this is where I inhabit, this is this space. And the moment I think of that, is like everything that I learned as a kid. This is, you have these girders which are skeletons, and you have the rest of it which is built around that. And like, if you look at children, they're just so, everything, there's this high level of plasticity, right? There's this high level of malleability in their bones and their structures and their joints, and everything is so flexible and pliable. But the older I get, the harder, the more rigid, the more solid I start imagining myself to be. And I start feeling that I'm in this prison of a body. Rather, the child thinks of the body as a toy to explore, whereas I start believing as I grow older, oh, this is hurting, that is hurting, stuck, like this is moving, right? And so I'm like, like this is so beautiful. I just want to come back. I'm just going to start playing with this idea that, I'm a cell, I'm a single cell. Like it comes down, boils right down to that simple thing. I'm a single cell. Everything, whether it's my bone or my muscle or my tissues, they're all cells, and cells are nothing but little puddles of fluid.
Yep, yep.
Right? And it just feels like everything, like it allows, like even the whole idea of my philosophy, which, you know, be water, non doing, be pliable, everything, like you said, the whole rigid aspect of being fundamentalist, when I start thinking that this is it and nothing else, and there's no other way around this, and this is how it's got to be. And like when I start creating rigid boundaries, I'm locking myself in, right? I'm locking myself in, and like you said, the cell can't survive if it doesn't allow, if the border is not permeable, it's not going to survive, right? And I feel like this is such a beautiful metaphor to hold on to, constantly reminding myself when I walk, when I move, because I want to, with every breath, even the breath, right? The idea that I'm breathing in and out, and the expanse of my breath is not just a few inches out of my nose and back. It could be as vast as I want it to be, because it's limitless, as I want to feel, because that feeling can change how I feel and how I am, and my awareness of myself, my awareness of my interactions with others. Like it expands my consciousness, expands my awareness, expands the circle that I have, and it can make me feel that this is not just me, right? Like everything expands, and if everyone in this circle is me, everyone, I am in someone else's circle, and I am part of that individual. It's just like a whole bunch of overlapping, intersecting circles. Like you said, like the cells, there really is no boundary between the cells. They're just constantly taking, it's like if a certain part of this cell became a part of the next cell, like how do we say that? Whose cell is it now? Right? It's just like, that's why I feel like ideas are one way of looking, but just thinking as well.
I was this year for um I have the Book of Awakening by Mark Nepo as my daily companion this year. Last year I had a Ryan Holiday Daily Stoic, but 2.5 years before that I also had this Mark Nepo book, which is just absolutely lovely. It's lovely little. meditations, you can say, on all sorts of things. And today he started to talk about how if you take a heart cell from you and put it in a petri dish, and you take a heart cell from me and put it in a petri dish. And heart cells are special because heart cells have electric currency, so they will pulse, right? So your pulses the way your heart pulses. Mine will pulse the way my heart pulses. If you put them in a petri dish, they will find a mutual third rhythm. So they will start to pulse together, which is just, that's that thing. That's that thing. It's like, that's the thing, right? It is like, I am not this entity and I am not close to you. I am not you. I'm not in contact with you. I'm not connected to you. Yes, you are. It's like, take two heart cells and they will, like you say, they don't have to make up the connection because it's already and always there. They just have to, oh yeah, here's the new pulse. Just, it's like, yes, that's it. That's it.
Oh, this is so beautiful because I just, there's something I'm always looking. Whenever I see people walk, I'm always studying walk cycles. I'm obsessed with studying and watching how people walk because I think, like, as people go older, they walk stiff. Like, the spine doesn't move, the hips don't move, it's just legs moving like that. If you see young people move, there's so much. I go, every joint in the body is moving with every step, right? And one of the interesting things about watching two people walk is their strides start matching. It's the left and the right, the left and the right, the left and the right, and they match. The pace starts matching, right? And I feel like that's exactly like, and when you brought the idea of cardiac cells, I'm like, oh, this is a cardiovascular activity. Like they're matching.
Yep. Yep. We
Oh,
find a rhythm. We find a
yeah.
rhythm that works. Yeah. Which can make, I'm 5 feet 2, so I'm not very, very tall, which is 158. Um, if I have a friend who's 2 meters or something, who has really gigantic legs, finding that common ground can be tricky because it might mean that I need to do 2 steps while he does 1 step or she does 1 step. It's like, but the urge is there, or I don't know, the pull is there. The drive is there. The need for that common rhythm just, it just arises when you come into close enough contact. It's like, yes, you will find that rhythm. In the same way that women who live in the same house will usually, after a time, start to have their period at the same time. Um, Go figure. Yeah, we are connected. We find the common ground. We find that shared rhythm, which is fucking amazing when you think about it. And he's like, but wouldn't it make more sense to have just one who's grumpy over there who's premenstrual so the other one are happy and can, he's like, no, let's do everybody grumpy at the same time. It's like, whatever. Right? But that's, it is that we are connected, and that connection is just such a driver. It's such a force. It is life force in a sense. That's what it is. It's life force. It's like, oh yeah, here we are. Here's our life force. It's quite beautiful.
I'm so happy that there's something so it's such a simple way to actually just match because I was just thinking about the other time when I was trying to me and my brother were not we're not like at best of terms, but we're not like we don't hate each other, but as siblings we're as close to not liking each other at all, right? And it's incredible. Like every time I try to have a conversation, I realize that it would always every single time land up in a confrontation, increased conflict, and us, almost on the verge of wanting to knock each other out physically, right? Like it just always heads in that direction. And recently we had this, we just went on a long walk, right? I think we walked for an hour and a half, and incredibly we found more comfortable conversation and interaction, soft, affectionate, accommodating, you know, empathetic with each other for the entire 90 minutes than we've had in the last 20 years, right? And it just struck me that's because we were walking together. We were not facing each other, so there was no sense of confrontation. That we were both walking next to each other in a common direction, right? Even if he had walked this way and I'd walked that way, we wouldn't be walking together. So we were walking in the same direction.
Yeah.
And that physical act of also the sense of by physically moving, there was a sense of energy constantly moving. There was no static, stagnant, stale energy of two people sitting in a room facing each other and trying to have a conversation, right? There was this sense of movement, like an energy flow, right, as we walk. And it was incredible. And I was like, wow, that just happened. And now, we're connecting all of these dots together. That's just it. As we walk, we were walking in the same direction. We were facing this way, but not facing each other. So there was no antagonistic energy. And the fact that we were walking together must have meant our paces matched, right? And that same, like, our hearts found the same common rhythm within which to beat that frequency, which would be common to both of us.
Mhm. Yeah, it brings tears to my eyes to hear you say this. Oh.
Simple as
Yeah, and it's like I mean, I do coach walks for just this reason, so that there isn't this stayed energy of just sitting still. There isn't the confrontational antagonistic of sitting opposite each other. Um there is this when you're in movement, it's hard to be stuck mentally because you are in movement and because it also brings other things. You're not confined to four walls and room. And, it's like, so it opens up a whole lot of things. But in my last divorce, which is now um, 5.5 years ago, we took walks. During that process, working things out, talking about this, that, and what will be and why would not be, and how can we look at the kids? And, it's like all of those that can be really sticky conversations, much easier to do when you're taking a walk than you're sitting down across from each other, with a table in between you to really influence the fact that, or stress the fact that, yeah, we're different and we're separate. And, it's like, no, we're walking side by side, like you say, looking ahead. Um, and there's more freedom to actually say what you feel and not, it doesn't, because it's like when, if I'm walking next to you and I'm feeling like shit for some reason or another, and it is to do with us and our relationship, etc. Something's breaking apart, or there's fear or uncertainty and stuff. If I say it, it can kind of go out into like the air that you speak about. It doesn't smack you in the face so that, oh, she means that I'm not doing this, that, and the other thing. It's like, no, it's easier to just see it come out and not immediately go into the defense, you know, or offense for that matter, and just, I want to hit you back because you said this. No, I said it because it needs to be out there, but not necessarily for you to fix or address, or, it's like, but it's one of those things that here's something. Um, so that's my recommendation. If you have a hard conversation, go out for a walk together. Definitely. Um, and it works when it's not a hard conversation too.
Yeah.
Right? Definitely. But definitely for hard conversations, it's like it's as if when I do that, when I go for a walk with somebody that I need to have a hard conversation with, or what I believe to be hard, perhaps, I'm I'm taking the help of what is there by walking. So it's like, use that, maximize the things, every little perk you can think of that will make this smooth flow, etc. Use it. You don't have to, like, okay, we're going to dam the river by putting us with a table in between us in a closed room, maybe harsh lighting. It's like, no, you know, soften it however you can help do that. I don't think that's thought about enough, at least not Western society. I mean, you have feng shui and all of those things, and a lot of the Ayurveda stuff also is like it centers on this aspect of flow, on the aspect of relation, on the aspect of balance, which is not static. Balance is movement based on what's needed now. And then now maybe something else is needed, right? But like, there isn't that, or it's been lost in Western, uh, culture. Like, go for
I'm
more
so
of that.
happy it's still so easily accessible. It's still as simple as a walk
Yeah.
together. That's it. Like, there's no, like you said, when you bring the table in the picture, it's like, oh, this is what I bring to the table. This is what you bring to the table. Now, what am I going to take away from this? What are you going to take away from this? Right? Like, there's this sense of almost like we have to find common ground, right? Like that, it's like it becomes effort, it becomes work, right? And like, that we started with the whole idea of this common ground, and I feel like we don't need to find common ground, we're in it. We just need to, wake up and realize that we are in that common ground. We've always been. We just stopped seeing it that way. We just closed our eyes to the fact that we are on common ground, right? And it's like it's such a beautiful experience to remember and recollect that we really aren't that different from each other. We really aren't so disconnected from each other. It's just that the moment, it's such a beautiful thing. I'll never forget this idea. Like every time I take a walk, I'm going to remember that example that you said of two heart cells starting to pulse along the same frequency. And that's just it. I mean, it's like this is what it means to have a heart to heart conversation,
Conversation.
right? It's like your heart and my heart start. I mean, it's how's it so hard if our strides start matching within a few minutes of walking together? I'm sure even the hearts start beating at the same rhythm, right? And to the same pattern. I mean, it's incredible. Why is that so hard to believe? If our strides, our feet are not connected, we're not holding hands. We don't even need to hold hands. But if we did, that would be an added experience of connection. But even if we don't, the fact that we're spatially together and we're moving in the same direction. And I feel like this all comes back down to the whole community aspect as well. If we take it to a larger experience, like we would all, like if we were hunter gatherers, we would all go out to hunt and gather stuff together, right? If we were agrarian families, we would go out the fields to harvest, to sow seeds and do all of that stuff. There was always this element of activity together, right? And I feel like Now, even if we are a family and we live together, we're not, because 8 hours you're at work, 8 hours I am at work, and we're at work at different places. The kids are in school and they're in a different school or in a different classroom. So really, there is no such thing as a connected family anymore, simply because we're not spending time in the same place, doing the same activity together in the same spatial environment, right? And I think I'm glad that the the lockdown, the pandemic actually reminded us of it, right? It's we've been experiencing this pandemic long before it happened, because we've lost our connection a long time ago. It's just that in this realization that we just realized we're so deeply disconnected, right? It's just brought this smack in the face and said, look, this is where you are, right? It was just like, we were disconnected. Like, just because we could go out and interact with people, the amount of interaction we actually got together in activities that allowed us to connect was limited, right? It was so limited. Like today, now we treasure that one walk so much, because we've been locked up for so long that a single walk feels like something awesome. But in the past, I mean, at the most, you're going to sit together and have grab a drink. Like, that's ultimate connection with people. But then again, you're not moving, so there's no physicality, there's no activity. You're not moving in a certain direction. You're only depending on the substance to bring you both to a similar wavelength of interaction, right? But like you said, on a walk, there's so much more. There's the fact that there's a horizon ahead of you. There's the environment. It's just constantly changing. Your mind is getting stimulated. There's a certain flow of energy. You're not in the same room all the time. You're constantly moving. Every second, your eyes get to see a new view. It's which also like opens up the mind, right? Like, if the eyes are constantly seeing a new view, which is why we love travel, because the eyes see a new view, the mind sees a new perspective, right? Like, there's this connection with the visual element of, oh, a new image hit my retina, so a new perspective filled my brain, right? Like, there's this sense of novelty of something new, something that's changing, something that reminds me that I'm not a victim of my past, and I'm not bound to my past experiences. Wow, I just realized this connects me back to the whole idea of why I leave memories behind, because I'm like constantly moving ahead. I'm like, okay, that was awesome, but this is cool too. So, and we're moving here, so let's look ahead. Like, objects in the rearview mirror are cool, but if I keep looking in the rearview mirror too often, I'm gonna miss out on what's in front of me.
And I mean, I was just thinking when you were saying this about how we, when we walk together, we'll find the common ground, we'll find the pace, um, we'll find the hey, pop, I'm recording a podcast. Speaking about connection,
Eh,
um, about how we also co-regulate, right? So if I am taking a walk, hey, you, cat, if I am taking a walk with somebody who is very, in distress, who are in that fight or flight, it's easy. One aspect is if I'm not aware enough, I can go into that. So we will co-regulate into that. Um, but that's just what Dominic did in the therapy session when he, because I have had for the past year almost, I've had this edge behavior of I start to yawn incessantly, which is, it's like, it's absurd. It's like, I just yawn and yawn and yawn. And it is very clearly edge behavior, very clearly. And it was extra visible on Monday. It is when my nervous system says, fuck, there's danger here. Flee. You know, or fall asleep. You know, don't go there. Don't. It's danger. It's danger. It's danger. So that's what he helped me do when he said, okay, just breathing rapidly with your mouth a couple of times to like not this long, slow yawn, but rapid in and out, rapid in and out. So I just, I gasped a couple of times to get, and then I could start to do the inhalation on 3 through the nose, exhalation on 6 or 9 through the mouth, and just do that a couple of times. He helped me co regulate down into a safe space, down into a place where, okay, it isn't dangerous. I have now helped my nervous system see it isn't dangerous. I am safe here. And in that place, I could turn around in this dream state and face the ninja warriors. And it's like, okay, they take on a whole different meaning or energy. I can I can get the message in a way that I can't when I'm, in that frantic state where it's just, get away because this is dangerous. Going down. So again, yes, that's why it's so interesting to like put that spotlight on myself in different types of conversation, in different types of interactions. It's like, where's my nervous system? What's my vagus tone at the moment? Am I like going into fight or flight or freeze mode, or am I chill? There is nothing I can't manage with this, throughout. Come hell or high water, I'm here. I'm good. I'll deal with it. Um, and that type of energy is very contagious. All energy is contagious. But if you have a strong sense of this, it is fine, it is calm, it is safe, that can really, really help someone who's in a more anxious or frantic state to just start to slowly come out of it. Um, Given, of course, that it is a safe space, but it's like normally we don't really live in dangerous times that way, you know. Rarely uh is that a valid response in that way. It's a learned response. And when it happened, the first time we started to learn it, yes, it was valid, absolutely. But then it just kind of, you know, it gets stuck in a loop that is like, oh, this is how I do. You don't have to though.
It's also, and I think this is why the physical, visceral experience is so important, because there's a certain sense of regulation that happens within the body, right? The body realizes like there's threat and treat, you know, flight or fight. All of this is like a very physical experience, right? And the more we limit that experience up here into the cerebral space, disconnecting from the rest of the body, again brings us back to the idea of not being connected with everything, right? The whole physical, mental, spiritual connection. The moment we start seeing them as separate entities, right? And there's the sense that, oh, this is just a cerebral threat. This is an emotional threat. This is a physical threat. That's, it's like there is no distinction. Like they are connected, regardless of what we like to believe as the origin of the threat and the possibility of the threat having an influence on this aspect of the body. But it's all connected, right? Just because if I'm being chased by a tiger, that doesn't mean I'm not in emotional distress. It doesn't mean I'm not in a cerebral threat, right? It doesn't mean that I'm only physically threatened, right? And if someone is shouting and yelling at me, it doesn't just mean I'm cerebrally, because if it's at work, then it's a cerebral attack. If it's in the family, if it's a personal relation, then it's a emotional attack, right? It doesn't mean that the body is not involved, right? And I feel like this everything seems to be coming back to this simple experience of walking together, because somehow it feels like that is one of those simplest, easiest, effortless things accessible to every single one of us is walking together. Bodies connected, the minds are connecting, spirits are together. Right? There's this sense of not just the connection between me, all parts of myself are now feeling connected, because when I move, when I'm walking, everything's moving, right? I'm thinking, my mind, my body, my spirit's all connected in a certain way. It's disconnected from the vagaries of the world. That's why walking feels like a very meditative act, right? Because you just disconnect. You're not thinking of your work so much, and things just seem to fall apart. And then, or you find yourself focusing on that particular thing that's disturbing you the most, right? Because that's where the energies are trying to fix things or resolve things or make things okay for you, right? And now, if I do the same thing with another person, now me connected together, the other person connected together, and we're now connecting together, all of this connects together. And in a way, it's like I can help the other person solve their problems. They can help me solve my problems, right? I can share my good stuff that's happening in my life. They can share their bad stuff or their good stuff. Like there's this sense of once we find that common ground, it doesn't matter whether we're sharing bad stuff, whether we're sharing good stuff, whether we're sharing things that we didn't mean to share or we're, desperately wanting to share. It doesn't matter because the wisdom of that connection takes over, and it's not my individual need to find resolution or the other person's individual need to find nothing. Is just that we do not exist as individual independent, and we are now one connect feel, and that the wisdom of the fascia, the connective tissue, the interstitial connections, everything just takes over, right? And if you look at it from a philosophical perspective, it's that the Tao as well, right? Tao is always there. It's just flowing. It's the eternal Tao, right? And for that brief moment in time, in the here, in the now, walking together, you and I are connected, and we're now. It's just we're just surfing the wave, right? The wave is taking us along. We don't need to do anything, right? And we can trust in the fact that the wave will carry us to where we need to, where we don't even need to chart the way. We don't need to surf and say, okay, this is where we need to go. I'm going to manipulate the wave to get to where I need to go. I don't do anything, just sit back and enjoy the ride.
And it's such a it's interesting. I mean, for a long time, but at least for the past year, this the sense of efforting. I've written about it, I've talked to people about it, I've podcasted about it. It's like we so laud hard work and work by the brow of your sweat and or the sweat of your brow or whatever. Um right, it's like and the efforting that is like if I have a hard conversation with you, there's something that we're not agreeing on, we need to work, there's a need for something to happen, right? There's a resolution that needs to come. Sitting down with a table as a barrier between us, with harsh lighting, and we have a deadline. We need to finish this by 1 o'clock, or this, that, and the other thing. That is akin to that efforting. That is how we need to, really push it to come. Whereas you and I, having the same situation, hard topic, we have something that is in need of a resolution, and we go for a walk next to each other outside. See, there might be effort in the sense that there is energy. I need to put in energy. You need to put in energy, but we're not fighting against. We're not we are going with the flow. We are riding the waves. It's like, okay, here we are. We took that path over, it's like, so it's finding out those aspects of how I can do that in my life. How do I invite that? Hey, Pop, that's a cord. You're not supposed to bite it. You're not supposed to bite it. Sorry, dude. Um, and it's like we're taught at home. You need to do the dishes. You need to clean the house. You need to, everything you need to do that you don't want to do, you need to do it because in school, same thing. Now it's math, but I'm not finished with my Swedish story that I'm painting this picture. He's like, no, now it's math. Ah, it's like, and at work, same thing. You have a deadline here, or you need to be within the budget, or sorry, dude, we can't give you the resources you need to make this project actually good. No, you'll have to make do. It's like, so we're so good at setting ourselves up to have to do the efforting precisely, rather than what can we do to just help us be in that flow state, in that field, accessing all of that more. And a simple thing as going for a walk and talk instead of, sitting down in a conference room, that's a good one. That's an easy way of, at least, like you say, with the book, inviting me to curl up. It's an invitation to go with the flow. You might not go there anyway. It might not be resolved anyway, but there's, I think, a greater possibility there.
Definitely. And I feel like it just sets the stage, and often the results are far better than what I could have forced, coerced, seduced, manipulated, whatever. Right? My best intentions and strategies and tactics would all fail compared to the effortlessness of allowing the wisdom of the wave take us towards resolution, right? Because at best, my tactical, strategic moves could bring us to where I want to go, but that's so limited because that's already within my horizon, right? But the wave can take me beyond what I've
Mhm.
imagined, beyond, you know, like my imagination is so limited when I think of, oh, I want to make things better. I want to, like, improve on this better. Like that's why, coming back to the painting, that's why painting is so awesome. Because you have no idea. Like I can choose to just create a still life. I'm gonna take a picture of, Helena's cat and I'm going to like paint. Right? Now I have this and I want it to look like this. Now this is essentially a limitation of my vision that I'm just going to try to imitate something, right? But when I try to create something which is not there and which I don't even know what I'm trying to create, I'm allowing the expanse of my perception, my imagination, my vision to go beyond, beyond, beyond anything that I've imagined this far. And that's the painting, the creation is now an act of discovery of myself rather than just a showcase of my accomplishments, of my skills, of my achievements. Oh, look, I'm so good at painting. Oh, look, I'm amazing. Oh, look, I did this. This is incredible. This is beautiful. 10,000 people loved it. It's an NFT. It's like $1 million right now. It's like, eh, I mean, it's still so limited. I mean, it's like it's not challenging my perception, my perspective. Whereas a single, the fact that I'm pushing the boundaries and constantly moving beyond the horizon, that's the magic. That's the magic that every artist is looking for, right? No matter what the medium is, every seeker, every spiritual seeker, everyone is looking like, oh, what lies beyond. Every child, when they play, is essentially driven by that curiosity to discover what lies beyond. What's beyond the horizon? Oh, no, 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 don't go there. That's like, that's bad stuff. No, no, no. I want to go. Now that you told me not to go there, I have to go there. Right? Like there's that burning curiosity. And I feel like that's the magic when I'm constantly obsessed with this whole play thing and we should be playing like kids and blah blah blah. It's that looking for the edge because like you said, as adults, we're taught that the edge is bad. Don't go to the edge, don't go beyond the edge, don't even look at the edge, just stay in your comfort zone, right? Don't look at the edge. Like the edge has this dark, evil connotation. I mean, it's a beautiful horizon. It's not this dark place where, evil reigns and strangers live and like, villains. I mean, it's not. It's just this beautiful space of infinite possibilities. Some good, some bad, some ugly. Well, but if you're going to limit yourself, then that brings us back to the whole rigid border, the closed mind, the fundamentalist thinking, and we're stuck. We're stuck in these little ghettos that we built in our own minds that says, no, 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 this is this is who we are, this is how we live. We're not going to do anything else, right? But no, no child has that. No child is
No,
born caught, stuck, rigid.
no.
Like they have this beautiful sense of malleability, curiosity, plasticity. They're constantly looking, how can I do this? How can I do that? Why should I do this? Why should I not do that? There's so much energy which is constantly radiating. It's a spark. Every child, every soul, every spirit, every creature is a radiance of enthusiasm, of energy, of curiosity, of excitement. We all have that. I mean, it's not something we've lost. It's just there. It's there. And we owe it to ourselves to find it because, you know, it's there. We
Mm.
haven't lost it. It's just there. We just can't see it.
It's I'm I just made a connection that I haven't made before. Since I started the creatives workshop, the Akimbo workshop in February of 2020, um, the aspect of dailies was introduced there. So in this closed discourse forum, start a dailies thread and share something every day for 100 days. And there were, painters and photographers and musicians and writers and textile artists and actor, you name it, it was there. There was a sharing that was just anything you could think of, it was there. And the thing that I so loved about this was one, the variety. If it had just been writers, a little bit boring, but it wasn't. It was everything. So it was like all types of creativity to the fore there. But also this aspect of following along, of like watching Steve's bears. He wasn't in my creative workshop. He took the one after, but similar to that. It's like watching the progress of this thing, and I so have enjoyed it, and the creative community that I'm a part of now, that is kind of a spin-off from this, same thing. Get so much out of this thing. And I just realized, I wonder if that's why I enjoy reading biographies. But I was just thinking, I have read an inordinate amount of biographies about or by artists in some way. Authors, composers, musicians, singers, writers, painters, because it gives me it's like being invited in the back door. It's like off stage. What happens in your studio? What happens when you sit down to write or play or paint? I love that. It's like it's such a, I don't know, it feels very intimate. there's a great intimacy there. I'm invited into someone's intimate space, how they do their craft, how they are in the world. And I am so thrilled about this. Hey, Pope. I think he wants to go out, but he's quite cute about it, though. Um, but I can, so that's what, in the age of social media, it's like the stage is the thing, right? Share the stage, share your finished product, share your thing. And I so enjoy same aspect, the ones who show me the progress, the ones who invite me in the how they ride their wave and how they come smack up against a brick wall. Bam! It's like, oh shit, that I didn't see that one coming. How do I deal with that? What do I do? It's like I love I love that. Um and it gives me a much greater appreciation for the finished thing. This piece, I love my bear painting, but it is a love that is much deeper, much more saturated in a sense, because I have witnessed its birth and its first steps and, you know, oh no, that was a dead end, reverse, go back, find a new way. It's like my love for it is more because I know what's behind the finished product. Um, so And I wonder if it is because that makes the person who has made this more human because I get to see more of the person. So it is humanity that I'm seeking in a sense. That is what I'm wanting to find humanity. I'm wanting to see how are you human? What happened to you up in the Himalayas when you have diarrhea, when you have, there's no air, because I was dumb and did burpees that I should, it's like I love being let in to be that intimate with you in that sense of being okay, because then I can feel it. I can I can try it on. Okay, Reddy in the Himalayas. Oh man, and then oh wow, it's like I it's like that imitation of the book again. You allowed me to curl up into you in the Himalayas in that sense, so that I am there. I can feel all of that.
That it's this is it, right? That's it's the experience, that semi-permeable experience. You are feeling my experience, right? And I feel like this is exactly why someone just asked me. They're like, okay, so you're saying you don't remember the stuff that you do and things don't happen. It's like you don't think about the past. You're constantly looking forward. Then why do you share stuff? So I'm like, it's not for me. It's not for me. It's for the world. I mean, like
It's
I
for
don't,
me.
yay! Like I have no idea. Like why am I sharing this? Because like if I think of photo albums, like in the past when we didn't have digital, photographs, like, everything was a photo album. Like I don't look back at that stuff, but that stuff
Mm.
is important. That when I document something, it's my second experience of the same event, right? It's like I'm revisiting. Like every time I take a photograph, I'm re-experiencing what my eyes have seen, right? And every time I write about it, there's a third experience of what I'm writing, right? Of what I saw, what I took a photograph, and now I'm writing about, right? When I talk about it on a podcast with you, there's another experience of the event that occurred, right? There's like meta layers to every experience, and it brings so much joy to me, not just because it's it's not like a masturbatory experience of my one experience and I'm just going to keep regurgitating that, but it's because I'm sharing it with you. Like the beauty of sharing, like this was my experience, this is how I felt about it. And when I share it with you, it brings another level of intimacy, which even I didn't experience the first time.
Mm,
Because what I experienced the first time was the intimacy of me and the event. But when I share the story with you, it's the experience and the intimacy of the event, my experience of the event, and now me sharing it with you, which brings in a new dimension. And what you take away from that brings in another dimension, right? And when you shared that and someone in New Zealand experiences the same thing, now that has gone into another loop, right? And like that's the beauty of art. Isn't that art? That's what art is, right? It's
yeah.
like my vision, my experience, my creative sharing with you. When you see that painting, you imagine something else. And I see the painting, I imagine something else. When we talk about it, we bring in a completely new perspective, which neither of us came in with in the first place, right? And like I feel like there's so much happening, and the beauty of this is just sharing, right? So I may not care to remember it for myself, but by sharing it with others, that's exactly what I'm doing,
Mhm.
right? I wouldn't have remembered it, but then when you ask me, when I tell you about it, when I share it with you, when we share it with the world, it's again going through those loops, right? And everything, like even a book. Like I'm starting this. I wanted to start a book club this year, and I got this idea of going through a book club, a book in timelines, different timelines. So you have a 30 minute, 3 days, no, 30 minutes, 3 hours. Oh, wait, 3 hours, 3 days, 3 weeks, 3 months, and 3 years, right? So you have these different timelines. So you take the book, you have 3 hours. That's it to go through the entire book, however big or small it is. You have 3 hours. Flip through it. You just read the blurb. You just read uh, the content. You figure out something. Just flip through one or two pages, whatever you can do in 3 hours, and you just let that set, just like percolate in the top of your mind, right? And then we meet. In 3 hours time, we share all of those experiences of what did you think of it in 3 hours, what did you get in 3 hours, what did I get in 3 hours, we share. Done. Now we meet after 3 days. In those
Mm,
3 days, I dive in a little deeper into the book. Now, I still may not be able to finish the book in 3 days, but I can dive into certain parts which caught my attention, and I just want to focus on that one chapter or this one event or this one section. Could be. So now again, we meet after 3 days, and now we share our experiences about that with each other. Now, 3 weeks. In 3 weeks, what did I get through? How much did I go through? Did I go through it in a linear fashion? Because I like this thing that allows you to jump. You don't even have to
mm,
read a book in a linear fashion because now you
mm.
can't read it in a linear fashion. Because what can you do? You can't read a book in 3 hours. You can't read a book in 3 days, right? I mean, maybe you can, but it's going to be hard. So, in this way, you're encouraging the brain to just jump rapidly to parts that you find interesting or you find curious, and this way, you go through everything right up till the end, where it's 3 years later, we meet again, and we're like, we may not have read the book, after the 3 weeks or 3 months, which was the last period. Most people can finish a book in 3 months, even if they're busy. But in the 3 years later, when we meet on the same book club, we're just discussing the idea of even if we haven't read it after those 3 months, what are the thoughts that have still remained? What's percolated into you? What did you feel that you used in certain aspects of your life? What did you share with someone? What part of that book left you with something still tingling inside? What part of that book, made some change? So, in a way, this is what I'm doing. I'm looking at one experience of reading one book, but across different timelines. And the beauty of the book club is we can share it with each other. We don't have to keep it within ourselves, right? And I don't know. I'm just going to try this out, wonder how it's going to work out.
Have you got a book in mind?
So, because I'm always harping about play and I've never read a single book about play, so I decided to start with James Carson's work, Finite and Infinite Games, and start with that.
Cool, cool. It's I'm really looking forward to hearing what what the experiences are of this. I am finishing up my book circle of two people
Mm.
on Women Who Run with the Wolves. We have a couple of chapters left, and I'm starting a new book circle. Same book, but it is a chapter at a time. And it's, so let's say that it is a year and a half process, and just giving each chapter a time uh, is a little bit. It's not like yours, but it's like it isn't normally. It is, here's a book club, done. Here's next book, here's next book club, done. It's like, so there's something to staying with it that really attracts me too. And Caspian challenged me last year to reread books, which I did, and I'm keeping up with that. So I still am like deliberately rereading books, and deliberately kind of in the new books that I read, I notice this is a book that I want to reread because there's some others, like you say, because it's different levels of awareness, different concepts of how am I relating to this when I reread it. And, do I reread it immediately or do I let some time go past? And okay, a couple of books I've reread many times. It's like, what happens? And it's fascinating to play with that aspect too of a book. And it is a little bit like, you have childhood friends and maybe you haven't met up in a couple of years, or, and then you meet up. What's still there? What do you remember? How alive is the connection? How valid is it? How relevant is it for my life? Maybe now that you've met up, you will continue to meet up more because, wow, there was something there. Or I don't have to meet up with you ever again. It might
Yeah,
be either of the two. And the same is true when I reread a book. It's like it can be one of those, oh yeah, no, I'm done now.
yeah.
Um the level where I'm at where it's like, no, don't need to do you again.
Yeah, it's so clear. I mean, like you have clarity, so you don't have to like, you're not on the edge of trying to figure out like, do I have to keep this alive? Should I, is it not right? Is it like, impolite of me to,
Yeah.
like there's so much ambiguity around the social graces of interacting and connecting and relating, that I think this is where that whole magic of letting the connection build itself, right? Let the connection keep us alive rather than constantly having to put that effort to keep the connection alive or to close the connection.
I think
Trust
I
the
need to
connection.
let him out because that's him saying, hey, connection, please. I'm back. Sorry.
The-
Somebody was really, really pushing for connection here. It's like, let me out.
but it's amazing, right? I mean, like animals, like this is something that I'm always thinking about. Like, how is it that animals without language can still,
Without human language.
without human language, right? Without a codified, structured thought language, are able to express emotions and communicate so clearly, sincerely, honestly, genuinely. And why is it that we struggle? And
Yeah.
I'm constantly coming back to the idea that there's something to do with physical connection, with spatial connection. The idea of us inhabiting the same spatial environment is a very powerful way to build connection, right? We all live in the same cave, we're going to feel connected. We all
Mm.
live in the same clearing, we're going to feel connected because there's a sense of spatial, visual acuity, right? Like, okay, I can see you. I come out of my tent and you're there, right? And, and then there's a physical contact, like cat came and She brushed herself against you. She didn't even meow, right? Like she didn't expect you to understand the meow, which is like, there's a physical exchange of information. And that information is I need to go out. Right? And that's my bladder talking to you through my
Yep.
body,
Yep.
right? And it's incredible. Like this 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 is essentially the connection that I feel like all of us miss out on in the modern world, primarily because we are averse to physical contact, right? Like I always think of physical contact in the modern world as three levels of interaction. Like today it's like if you're a stranger, if you're an acquaintance or someone who I don't really know, at best I can give you a handshake, right? Like that's acceptable. Like I needn't do that, but like that's one thing that I can still do. The next level is if it's a person I know well, an old friend, I give you a warm hug. That's about it. And if we get intimate with each other, then we're sexually in bed together, and now that's another level of it. But if you leave these three, you know, levels of intimacy, there's nothing in between. Anything in between is awkward, is uncomfortable, is weird, is strange, is like good touch, bad touch territory. Like, what's happening here? Like, why are you hugging me for more than 10 seconds? Oh my God, 10 seconds, I'm going to die. Get away from me. Right? There's so much uncertainty about physical contact, right? Like, how do we make that physical contact? Like, two people walking together. Like, if we were to hold hands and walk together, would that be all right? Oh, is that strange? Is that awkward? I mean, does that mean that, we're together? Is like, what's this? What's happening? Right? And I feel like, how do we build a sense of comfort with contact? Right? And this is where, again, I come back to the whole play thing. Like, kids get together, they don't care. They just jump into the playpen. They're just playing with mud. They're rolling around. They're throwing things at each other, right? And then they're like, I could take paint and put it all over your face, and like you could take crayons and draw all over my back. And like, there's so many things that we involve ourselves with physically. And I'm wondering if
Mm.
this is one of those things. Like, I'm trying to focus a lot of effort in this year towards offline exploration, right? How can I bring people like, initially, I spent a lot of last year and the previous year thinking about how to induce play online on Zoom calls and, experiences digitally. But I feel like the magic of it is lost because it's so easy to disconnect on a Zoom call. People can turn off the screens, can be connected but not really there, can be immersed in the interaction but not feel it energy wise because there's a certain level of one person bringing a high level of enthusiasm, the other person not quite feeling it, doesn't really, the osmosis is not happen, right? So I'm this year I want to explore physically. I'm trying to set up some sort of a physical space where, people come in and start experiencing playing like kindergarten kids, but while still being full grown adults. So you're still gonna, I'm gonna get them to all do the same silly stuff, like, take a little piece of paper, this is your crayon, draw a mountain, draw a cat, do whatever you like. You have, things like that. And I feel like there's something to do with drawing that connection through the physical medium. What can it be? What can we start making it feel more comfortable? Like, can just rub shoulders against each other? Can we like, can we, give a double handshake where you give me a handshake, I give you a handshake, and then I hold it together like a sandwich handshake? Like, how do we, like, do we do the Roman handshake where you hold each other's forearms and stuff, your hands? Like, how do we slowly and gradually build a certain level of physical comfort, which is, independent of the extremes, which is just a handshake or which is just sex? And like, where do we find there's so much nuance of physical interaction between two human beings that we're just not exploring whatsoever.
Mm.
And it's scary, right? It's scary. Like, how do you, it feels like it's again that border, that boundary, right? Like, your space stops, 6 feet away from me. This is my space. 6 feet around me is my radius. If you're coming in, you better be someone I'm really close to, right? And if you're going to touch parts of my body, then you better be someone I'm really, really, you know, close to? Like, how do we draw these? How do we play with the nuances between that, where we get a little, like you said, like a hug. When you want a hug, you find a person who's a hugger. Like, but is that it? I mean, like, again, we're still stuck between sex, between a good warm hug and a good solid handshake. That's it. I mean, like, in between these spaces, I feel like again we're lost. We're not exploring that common ground, that connective tissue, the fascia between these two, three extremes. And maybe, I'm thinking that play could be one of those things.
Mm.
Allows adults to rekindle connection through physical things. Like talking about the idea of an old friend. When you meet an old friend, how do you know if we still have it or not? Because the last time you met that old friend was when you were 12 years old and you were playing in the forest, right? And now you meet each other at the bar. Like, how are you going to find that connection? Like, where's it going to be? And then you're going to discount that relation, saying that, oh, there's no connection anymore. Maybe there is. We just didn't find the common ground where it was.
Where it becomes apparent. My friend Charlotte does playful tantra
Mhm,
in Swedish, lekfull tantra.
mhm.
And she has a couple of really, really lovely exercises. I took a weekend course with her, and it's just that's one way of playing with with precisely what you say. What is in between these, and these, her playful tantra is in between the basically the hug and the sex. It's like what's in between there. How can you? What can you? Um, Really, really interested. And then I did a couple of weeks after I did that. This was in 2018, I think. I did embodied intimacy with, and same thing, different types of playing with this. One of them was to wrestle like you do when you're a kid. You know, get down on the ground, put out a blanket, or, it's like, so you kind of know this is where we are. And just start to wrestle. And he's like, oh my God, talk about, I don't know how to do this because I haven't done that in 40 years. Right. But super fun once I let that drop away and just, okay, here I am. What can I do? And just like you say, it's always there. We haven't lost it. It's just it's hidden deep beneath. We need to let go of what's on top of it so that it can come to the surface. Um, but it is interesting also. When I worked on my India project, Indian colleagues could get really close. It's like the Swedish boundary is approximately a meter. I would say the Indian boundary is more like 30 centimeters. It's like, man, you're close. And my entire body just says, what is this? And that was just the way it is there, at least where I was outside of Mumbai. But the noticing of that is for me the interesting aspect. The noticing of that, of, okay, I have a different boundary or custom or habit because I'm not even sure if it's my personal boundary. It is a custom. This is how it's done culturally in Sweden. It's like because I haven't bumped up against any Indian people who come way too close. So I don't know. Okay, that close. Maybe that's not my personal. Maybe somewhere in between. Maybe it isn't the customary cultural aspect of it that's valid in Sweden. Maybe mine is somewhere in between. So it is fun to play with those things. And somehow the notion that we sexualize, it's like we weaponize touch into being sexual. And we do that quite early. I've maybe I've shared this before on the podcast, but when my oldest went from first to third grade, and then she moved up to fourth grade at another school. They had done, massage circles. Everybody could sit in a ring and you massage the back of the or the shoulders of the person in front of you. And so everybody is massaging. And then you can turn around and so you get to like massage two people and be massaged by two people. They stopped that in fourth grade. Okay, why do you stop doing that in fourth grade? Well, because maybe there are a couple of girls who will feel very uncomfortable. And I'm going, Uh, yeah, because you are weaponizing it, because you are sexualizing it. We should do more of that stuff so that they can get the sense that, okay, touch does not mean sex. It isn't equal. Because that way you would have more steps in between the warm hug and
Yeah.
the sex in bed. It's like, oh yeah, I can be massaged by my friends in school. That's comfortable. And again, of course, there might be someone who's really sensitive. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking really general here, right? But when we weaponize it, we're good at weaponizing everything, but really good at this. So I was going, oh man, it made me so sad because I asked the teachers. I asked them specifically, saying, "Hey, did you stop doing that thing? That was so good because I want to keep that." Keep that ease of me being in my boundary and being able to say, no, don't go so down. I don't want you near my butt. Stay up on my shoulders. Say that. Practice that in a safe space where there's 30 other kids and a teacher around you and everybody's clothed. That's where you want to do that thing. That's where you want to find out, "Oh, no, could you do it a little bit harder? Could you do it a little bit softer? That hurt a little bit. Oh, can you press down there?" You know, m do that in a non-sexual, non-weaponized way, and don't stop doing that. Maybe then I would have been able to go wrestling in embodied intimacy without it feeling like, oh my God, how do I do this? What can I do? What am I allowed to do? Can I just flop on top of you? No, I can't. Well, maybe I can. Let's try it out. Hasn't killed anybody yet. Um, yeah.
It's beautiful, right? Just playing with that nuance because yes, there are extremes. I mean, this comes back to how we look at society and we look at the world and everything as polarities, as duality, right? And that's true. It is, though that is a definitive reality. But if you play with the nuances between that, that's where you find the magic of life. That's where you experience the magic of life. Otherwise, you're just stuck. Like that's the
Mm,
fundamentalist thinking. You're either like, oh, I'm just going to be at this extreme, I'm going to be like in this extreme. So either you'll end up becoming a Puritan or you become this like debauchery, like constantly exploring hedonistic, stuck on the hedonistic treadmill, or you're just like, oh my God, I'll never do things like that. You're just stuck
mm,
between two extremes.
mm,
At either of those two extremes, you're not exploring any of the nuances in between. And I feel like you said, this is the incredible thing that child can explore and discover for itself from within what feels comfortable, what doesn't feel comfortable, and how to express that. And again, you don't even need language here, right? Like the physical expression. Like if I were to just turn back and give one stern look, that's clear intent to say no.
Don't go there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's so simple. Like
Yeah.
there's no confusion or how do I say no? What words do I use? What's socially acceptable way to say no? When you're in the physical realm, the answers just come out for themselves, right? And I feel like this is something so incredibly, it's intimate in the sense that you're really exploring comfort with oneself. It's
Mm,
really got nothing to do with the other person at all in
mm,
this case, right? Like I'm getting understanding a sense of where's my comfort, what does my body like, what does my body not like, and how is the other person involved in this,
Mm.
right? And it's got, like you said, this sex doesn't come anywhere into the picture. It's just a clarity of my physicality, my circle of comfort, your circle of comfort, and where and how do these circles intersect in such a way that we find that semi permeable space where you can give, I can take, I can give, you can take, right? And this, it's a beautiful space because physically, we don't need to be taught. No one needs to read a book on consent. No one needs to read a book on which is good touch, bad touch. We don't need to see a body chart to say, oh, this is acceptable, this is not acceptable, this is no good, this is bad. No, I don't need to look for for some sort of answer from the outside. Oh, what do you think? Is this person doing the right thing? No, I need to look for answers from within, right? And this is so incredible because I feel like this is the communication, this is the contact, this is the connection. Finding that common ground is the easiest with our own physical bodies. Like we have stopped, like you said, we've weaponized our bodies. Our bodies are now tools to get what we want. I can use it as a tool to get something, manipulate, to dominate, to submit. It's a physical tool, right? Whereas it's a toy. It's a
Yeah.
toy that's meant to be played with, discovered, to delight in, to explore the boundaries. It's an incredible toy in itself. And that's again, if you look at it physically as adults, we've just stopped playing with our bodies as toys.
And I mean, what we're talking about now, it's like, this is me. This is me. And that's why I say that I'm really, really playing with and sensing into when I am a yes and then saying yes, and when I am a no and then saying no, that is valid in all sorts of. It can be you saying, can we do this an hour later? And I say, yeah, sure, of course, no issue. Somebody come and say, can I borrow your hammer? Absolutely, no worries. Do you want to meet up on Saturday? No. Just it so it can be that easy, but it can also be, where do I want to be touched? How do I want to be touched? What is a delight for me and my body at this moment? And saying that, being that, honoring that is just, oh, I have, I have 40, 45 years of learned behavior to unlearn. Right? Because for me, a lot of this is, I'm just realizing that, yes, my body, my sexual body is has been extremely weaponized, has been extremely in a way where I am submitting because I cannot want what I want because no, good girls don't want that. Or, it's like, so shutting down. Ah, it's just, and I mean, I don't think I'm weird. I don't think I stick out. I hope that there's a movement there so that maybe kids of today are getting a at least different, or maybe a lighter load on top. I'm hoping. But then, like my kids' school, when they say, no, we can't do massage in fourth grade because, it's like, hmm. But I was also thinking of one of the things that struck me when I worked in India, which was 2007, 8, 9 into 10 something. So, some years ago, but still kind of modern time, right? Homosexuality banned. Girls and boys, once you're teen, weaponized to hell. It's like you may not hold hands with a boy if you're a girl. You may not hold hands with a girl if you're a boy. But you can hold hands with a girl if you're a girl, and you can hold hands with boys if you're a boy. And so I would, walk the streets of Mumbai looking at like 20, 25-year-old males holding hands. And I would go, what the fuck? Homosexuality is bad. What is going on? So I had to actually dive into that and kind of understood it for myself in the sense that our human need for touch cannot be banned. So if you're not allowed to touch a girl if you're a boy and homosexuality is off the market, then I can touch boys because you don't see that in Sweden. You do not see my son, 17, he does not hold hands with his boyfriends that are friends. It's like that does not happen. If you're holding, girls can do it. There's a different thing that,
Yeah.
but I don't, it, when I was small, up until maybe 7, 8, 9, then you stopped. But I can see that now. So girls and teens, girl teens are allowed to do it and do it. Boys don't. They get to do the hard pat on the back, right? It's like punch their friends a little bit.
Yeah.
And they get to be loving towards each other in kind of weird ways on the soccer team or playing baseball or basket or. So in sports, you're allowed to hug and high five and touch. Pile up in a big pile because somebody scored a goal. That is allowed. So again, we need touch, and it's a fucking disgrace that we're weaponizing touch so that we aren't. And today, global pandemic, touch is like anathema. You're not allowed to touch because you're spreading diseases back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And it's like, I don't think we would be here if touch was dangerous. It's like we are social creatures. Look at most mammals, social creatures. We touch. All of the primates, fuck, they touch all the time. Because you're checking for lice or it's like there's touch. The orangutans, the babies do not touch their mom for the first 6 years of their life or something. It's like you are constantly in connection, in physical connection with another soul. It's like, but no, sleep in your own room, sit in a pram facing out rather than watching mom or be wrapped in a wrap. It's like, mm, yeah, we're going off somewhere there.
Yeah.
Uh,
Like, when you said the word wrap, that made me think again, right? Like, there's another layer of clothing. Like the orangutan mother and the orangutan baby are in physical contact with each other through every part of the body. When the baby is
yes.
holding on like that, every square inch of the body is connected, right?
Mm,
That's how much, like, when you think of two cells together, it's like how much of the contact surface allows connection, right? Like, if just like two little parts connecting, no, if the whole thing is connected, then there's more connection.
mhm,
Now, when we hug each other, there's clothing between us, there's this wrap between us. Again, that's now sexualized. If I touch you with my bare skin, that's bad. If I touch you through clothes, through gloves, it's acceptable. Like, think of it like the civilizations when they came up first, they were all based around common spaces. Whether it's the Indian Harappa Manzaro, the Turkish baths, Swedish saunas, all cultures, communities, indigenous tribes, they were built around a common place. Uh, In most places, it was a public bath or a sauna or something of the sort where you were completely naked. And
mm,
it wasn't like one of those places where everyone's having an orgy, but it's just a space where you let go. You don't need to hide anything from each other. You're just saying that this is a safe space. You don't need to protect yourself. There's no shame in showing parts of your body. Like, okay, outside we have a system where, we wear clothes for whatever reason, for functionality, for protection from the elements, etc. But then there is a safe space. And in that safe space, we are all comfortable with ourselves in our own skin, right? Every culture, whichever part of the world, all had some form of a public bath, a public space where everyone were naked. And when I say naked, it's physically naked and even emotionally, metaphorically naked in the sense that you don't have to hide anything from each other. We're all from the same tribe, from the same community. We don't need to, we don't need to fight. There's no shame between each other, right? And now it's like,
Yeah,
oh my
don't go
God, there's
there.
so much shame everywhere. Like I
Yeah.
laugh. I mean, I'm in a tropical country. Why the fuck am I wearing clothes? For whatever reason. It's so beautiful out there. There's nothing here. If you look at any part of this country, all we do is wear a cloth. Like you wrap the cloth like this, it becomes a sari. You wrap a cloth like this, it becomes a turban. You wrap a cloth like that, it becomes a dhoti. You wrap a cloth like this, it becomes a lungi. All we did, whether male or female, young or old, was carry a single piece of cloth.
Yeah,
That's it. We just wrap it around for whatever reason.
yeah.
Now, like you go to any office, ACs are on at 16 degrees
And
centigrade
it's
and
cold
everyone's
as
wearing suit.
fuck. That's
Why?
horrible. I hate that. I had to bring like sweaters and stuff to India because inside I was freezing. It's like, oh man, it's weird. But it's also interesting because I mean, if you have premature babies, I mean, it's not long, what, 20, 30 years maybe, but not long that they discover that, okay, the best thing for a premature baby is to be skin on skin. Yes, they are at risk of infection and they're much more sensitive, etc., etc. That risk is not greater than the risk of not having skin on skin contact, because that's what they need. They need to be near the heart. They need to be near the sound, but they need to be in skin contact. It's not enough to put them on top of you on with the clothes in between. Naked, you know. So yeah, it is, and it's quite like I do. Uh, I love going skinny dipping, and so the past and this is like fairly recent for me. Since 2018 or something, I started going down to the naked pier um, where I live, and then there's also these saunas, cold bath that are generally segregated. So there's a men's section and a women's section. But the month, first Monday of every month is queer day. So everybody can be everywhere. So I go with a friend. Uh, and he's male, I'm female, so we are mostly in the men's section, which is a little bit bigger and stuff. And the saunas are warmer, 10 degrees warmer for some reason, and I love it. And I love the fact that it is this, like you say, safe space, which is what I experience it is, and which I think it is for most, and it isn't for some because it isn't as common anymore. We have weaponized, sexualized, etc., so that there are people who don't know how to behave in a situation like that, whether it be male or female or whatever. It's like, yes, absolutely. But if you kind of take away that aspect and just be, I love this being in the sauna with 5, 10, 15 other people of both or of many genders. Um, and bodies are so fascinating. It's like, shit, they're fascinating to look at. And I try to look at them without sexualizing, without weaponizing, but just appreciating shapes and sizes and colors and hairs, and it's like it's fascinating. Um, I really enjoy that. So we do that every month. So I get my dose of naked, and it's like, yes, it is a way to de-shame. Because when I can step in there, ask me naked, I don't have anything on me, and there's 10, 15 other people in there, and I just step in. I don't feel self conscious. I don't feel judged. I don't feel sexualized. I am just a soul stepping into this communion, this connection that is happening here in this common ground. More of that, please. It is lovely.
It's
Yeah.
so basic, so simple, so soulful, so necessary. It's vital, right? And you know, it's incredible. I mean, it's just like it's so amusing for me to think that we as a society are imagining that we are progressing.
Mm,
We are getting better, we are evolving, we're making the world a better place. No, we're going in the complete opposite direction. What the fuck are you talking about? Like, you're not making the world a better place. You're not, nothing's going to change if we go up to Mars. Nothing's going to change if we eradicate poverty. Nothing's going to change because we're just moving in the opposite direction, right? I mean, like, what about the poverty of connection,
yeah.
right? You just think of poverty of survival, physical survival, right? Like, some people do not have money,
Mm,
resources to survive physically. But have we completely discounted the fact that none of us are really thriving as human individuals with a need for connection? We seem to have completely discounted, and which is why I'm always amused, because the closer you go into ghettos and like slums and spaces where people live below the poverty line, the richness of connection is incredible, right? And I have lived years, with people below the poverty line. I've lived on the streets. I've lived in places where, people would be like so poor, but I've never seen them, without a smile, because people are connected. The more you're suffering, the more you're struggling, the more scarce the resources, the more you need to huddle together for warmth. The
yep.
more you need to hold on to each other, the more you need to drop the walls between each other because you're sharing everything that's there, right? And that's increasing the level of interaction, connection, and richness of being united. So, where's the poverty really? Okay, these people are struggling for a meal. Yes, you're struggling for connection. So, if you do think that this is poverty, well, then so is this,
Yep.
right? And we just completely, oh no, but I got money, I got an Xbox, I got PS3, and I got, the internet. So, no,
And
you're
I
not
mean,
good.
I would say it is kind of weird that when the wall fell and the East Bloc kind of is like, okay, now it's no longer there. And you had these Romanian children's homes where you had uh, young girls and boys, basically chained to beds, nobody ever touching them. They did have warmth, a roof over their head, a bed to sleep on, clothes to wear, food to eat, and they died because nobody touched them. Except for there was that one, I don't know, I've heard this. Um, the cleaning lady in one of these children's where it was like crib babies, the crib next to the door, she would actually touch that kid going out. That kid lived
Ah,
because at least once a day somebody touched her, right? So he's like, So it's like, and it's fascinating that we have these very, very literal evidence. We have literal evidence that we die if we are not in connection. We know this. Those, I mean, those, the documentaries from, and magazine spreads and articles from when Romania fell was just all over the world. If we didn't know it before, we know it from that period, right? And still, you have, it's like, what's changed? Yeah, we have more loneliness. We have more disconnect. We have more people who don't ever have anybody hug them or touch them or, hold their hand. Uh, and I mean, in COVID, having people dying, not being allowed to meet their kin. It's like, just, it is absurd. It is absurd. And the horror, the stories that I've heard about that everybody has heard about that, about, mom was in ICU and, I couldn't see her for 2 months and then she died. It's like, that's not nowhere near. And it's the same with the AIDS epidemic, in the 80s, 90s, when they didn't know what it was and people were. So there's a Swedish author, Jonas Gardell. He wrote a series of books where the first is called Torka aldrig tårar utan handskar, which means never wipe away tears without gloves. And that was what the nurses caring for these mysteriously stricken, mostly gay men who were dying of AIDS before we knew what it was. That was what they had. They were not allowed to touch their patients. They were not allowed to wipe away a tear if they didn't have gloves on. And I mean, the how non-humane that is, how we strip ourselves of humanity there, of compassion. It's like, that is absolutely void of compassion. Mm. Oh, it's horrible.
It is, right? It is. I mean, like when if people can actually die due to lack of contact, it just stands to reason that people your immunity is also going to fall through lack of contact, right? So the more you hide and prevent any sort of interaction with each other. I mean, this comes back to the same thing. We're closing our borders. We're turning our semi-permeable spaces into hermetically sealed units, which do not allow any sort of atmospheric exchange whatsoever. It
Yeah,
just all looks like we're just going in
yeah,
the wrong direction for sure. I mean, like the further away you move from contact. I mean, like if you look at it from in perspective, like you see children in rural areas in India growing up eating stuff off the ground, playing in the mud all day long. Sure, there's a bunch of diseases that they may catch, but they're also growing because there's so much minerals, there's so much elements in the soil that we need any which way. So to an extent, maybe they're getting the nutrition off the soil rather than the perspective that we're only getting bad stuff from the mud, right?
yeah,
What if you're actually getting good stuff as well?
yeah,
Like maybe there's a balance, like of good and bad stuff, and then the body just decides, okay, we had too much bad stuff, so we stop eating it, and then there's a lot of good stuff coming, so you continue eating it. Maybe there's a certain inherent wisdom within the body, right? Like my dogs, every time my dog would get a upset stomach, he would go out. Every time we'd go out, he would look for a certain kind of leaf, plant, grass, and he would eat it.
we did. Yeah.
How does he know? He doesn't know Ayurveda, like which plant gives you, like he didn't
He
study.
probably does.
Yeah, right? Like,
It's the field.
yes, right? And that's an incredible thing because there's another
Yeah.
beautiful thing that happens since I brought up my dog. every time I would be unwell, he would be on
mm,
every single time. And I'm like, this has to be a deep sense of empathy
yeah,
that he's like, okay, you're not feeling well. Like, I am going to take on that. Like, I'm not going to avoid it. I want to feel it. I want to empathize with you. I don't know, maybe he's even taking off the brunt of the disease
yeah,
onto himself, right? But every single time, if I'm not well, he's not well. It's uncanny. But every single time, like, that's the level of depth of connection between us. And that's what we used to do. We used to wrestle all the time. And it's easy to assume that, I'm just transmitting the disease by contact, but it doesn't even have to happen to me. Like, even if we're not touched each other, played with each other in the next, 2, 3 days. But if I'm just lying in bed, when I come out, he's as miserable as me. If I'm having
mm,
the loosies inside, he's having the loosies outside. I mean, if I've got a
mm,
bad stomach, he's got a bad stomach. I'm like, what, how is this happening? But it
yeah,
happens. I mean, it's like an empathy. If I can feel, and it's not just to, like, I don't know, like, humans always like things being humane, right? Like, human by being compassionate. And I laugh. I mean, like, if you look at animals, they seem to be more connected, more conscious, and more compassionate than most humans I know. Like, anyone included, like the best humans in my life, I could still believe that animals in my life are far more connected, conscious, and compassionate towards me than the humans in my life. And it is not like a moral flaw or a character defect, but it's just the fact that humans are less connected with this common field. Animals are completely in connection. Like, every evening at 5 p.m., my dog doesn't have a watch, but he knows exactly at 5 p.m. it's feeding time. Where the fuck are you? You're late. I have a clock, I have an alarm set, and I'm still late. He doesn't have a clock, he does not read the time, he doesn't have an
yeah.
alarm, but at
But he
5
knows it's
sharp,
time. Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Now
yeah,
that's a
yeah,
connection.
yeah. Yeah, it's fun, and my son, he's here for 2 weeks, and then he's at his dad for 2 weeks, and so he left on Sunday, and he loves Pup the cat. So whenever he comes, he's like, "Where's Pup?" And I'm like, "I'm over here." He's like, "Where's Pup?" And he's really, really good at hugging and cuddling and stuff. And so he's always, he's 17. He's not 8. He's 17. He walks around with Pup the cat. So Monday, when my son had left in the evening of Sunday, Pup goes to me and says, "Here I am." I was like, "Okay, do you miss him?" And he goes, "Yeah, I do miss him because it's so nice to cuddle up with him because I don't do that as much." But Pup the cat is usually very close to me, lies next to me in the sofa when I'm sitting there, and he sleeps with me in my bed and stuff. So I don't think he's deprived of connection when my son isn't here, but he gives something else, and he was just a parent. So I actually did ask him Monday, Pope the cat, "Do you miss him?" And he's like, "Yeah, I do miss him," because he was like, "Please pick me up." And it's like, "Okay, yeah, I will." Um, and it's
But that
just
reminds me of your cat post.
yes,
Yes.
yes, yes. Yeah, precisely, because he knows what he needs. It's like, and he acts on it, and he does take such good care of himself. And make sure that I understand when he needs to go out because the bladder is saying full, or when he says food. It's time for food. Food. It's like, or water for that matter. So it's like, yeah, he is good at tending to himself. And I still keep him as my mentor, role model there.
Absolutely.
Uh, yeah.
I mean, like,
Well,
most human beings learn to stifle their inner
yes.
selves for the sake of social places. Like, oh, I can't disturb Helena. She's in a podcast. So I'm just going to hold, let my bladder hurt because I'm going to wait till the podcast is done. But the cat's like, no, bladder
Yeah.
first, podcast later.
Yeah.
Open the door. Let me get out.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like that's self. Like this is exactly what I'm saying. I mean, like this is the same thing coming back to the whole contact thing. Like animals build this connection, this awareness, even with themselves, with their instincts, with their needs, with their wants, with their desires. It's so clear, right? Because like most of my cats are feral, like got a dozen of them. So they don't enter the house, they don't actually live and cuddle with me. But they're always together. When they're sleeping, there's four of them sleeping together. There's two of them, one on top of each other. They're always connected with each other when they're sleeping around. They're just lazing around. When they want to be petted, they come there and
Mm.
roll around my legs and ankles and say, pet me. And the other times when they don't want to be in any sort of conversation or connection or contact, they I walk towards them and then they'd run away, just fold. Like this clear sense
Yeah.
of I want contact, I want connection, want something now, and now I don't want this, I don't want that, I don't want right. There's so much of clarity within themselves. They know exactly what they want, and they're also able to express that very simple. Come here, pet me. Not
Yeah.
now.
I think this is what Matthew Ninma, who's also in this season, he says that something along the lines of the cognition being our enemy. And I think that is what happens. It's like cognition is what makes us doubt, is what makes us go, oh no, she's recording a podcast. I had better wait. It's like we talk ourselves out of our needs. We talk ourselves out of expressing our desires. We talk ourselves out of saying yes when I'm a yes and no when I'm a no. Because it's like cognition can find this rationalize, yada yada, this and it's like this is also one of the messages that Mark Nepo is inviting or seeding perhaps in this the Book of Awakening is just this. It's like just be, you know, be because there's so much of that on top stuff that we use in such a way that it harms us. It doesn't serve us and actually harms us. And he had a cancer scare, surgery, and this, that, and the other thing. And really, like, you know, kind of reeled it in to, okay, here I am. All of these things I've been adding on top. I can't do this because of that. I can't do that because of this. And it's like, I'm dying. If I want a hug, say it. You know? Like, express it. Go for it. Don't talk yourself out of it because you do need it. Um, it's quite, we do complicate things. Let's put it that way. Let's don't complicate being a cat. They are cats. But I sure complicate being a human. It's like, what if I don't complicate this? What if I let myself be all that I am? It'd be a funner world, I think. A lot funner. Because that's what kids are. It's like young kids. It's like they just do them. They just do human. Because that's what they are. So this
Yeah.
is how we do human. And then you put on top all of these the cultural aspects and the norms and the rules and the moral and the ethic and the this is okay. Like and I mean, I'm not saying all of that is bad, but there is a lot of weaponization going on. But why?
I mean, it's almost like very clear that the system that we're growing up in are designed to convince us that intuition is always wrong, your intellect is always right, right? I mean, it's kind of amusing because I mean, if you look at it, even science, when you think of science means it's just easy to say, but then isn't I mean, like the way I learned science is like science doesn't prove anything; it just disproves every other thing. So you're just left with the one thing that didn't get disproved,
Yeah.
right? That doesn't mean that that's
Using
true.
with what we know right now, with the
Exactly.
machinery, the tools, the gauges, the techniques and methods we have right now, this is the one thing we haven't been able to disprove. Yes.
Yeah. So I mean, it's kind of amusing. So like it's almost like that's whereas the animal grows up trusting its instinct, trusting its intuition, which says when you're unwell, you eat that plant,
Yeah.
right? Right. Fine, you go eat a rabbit, you go eat a deer. I couldn't care less, right? Anything into your system is fine. When you're unwell, that's the plant you eat, not this plant. This plant is going to do you bad. Where does it get the wisdom from? Because I
Yeah.
mean, maybe that's just it. Everything is cellular knowledge. I mean, like when we think of the genetic code and you see the DNA, which says that it encodes all the information and knowledge that you need, maybe that's just how it is. It's all there. It's just that you just need to be able to read it and access it, and that's your intuition. That's your instinct talking to you, relating. Like if you look at it, all cultures in the past, like the old indigenous system, was like looking to nature for answers. Look up at the sky. What's the weather going to do? Try to find patterns in nature, and you study patterns in nature, and you figure out and you learn. It's not like it's like there's this guy I was we met on Twitter, Alex Criddle. So he's researching plants, and it's incredible. Like, is it something so amusing to think that we actually tried trial and error to figure out if which plant was poisonous and which wasn't? Or is it more likely to believe that you just go and ask the plant, hey, can I eat you? Are you good to eat? Or are you not so good to eat? Are you going to give me the loosies? Are you going to kill me? Maybe that was just it. Like human beings just connected in that common space where animals, plants, humans, all of us interacted and shared and discovered knowledge, which is how the birds figured out like how to eat from a milk can or drink from a milk can,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Maybe that's just it. We didn't need to do trial and error, try. Like imagine that. How could I do that? I mean, I'll probably die trying to eat 100 plants in the desert or in the forest, right? I mean, like it probably make more sense to just connect into the common space and say, hey, I want to eat this. I'm not feeling too good. Which one of you can I eat? Or which one of you should I not eat? Right? But it's so hard for us to believe today as modern humans that we can communicate with plants and plants are going to tell us which ones are good to eat and which ones are not.
Yeah, and it's like I was in I recorded a pod with a friend of mine last week that was released on Sunday in Swedish, so it's the Rika Tillsammans-podden. Um, and we were talking about this yes when I'm a yes and no when I'm a no thing and lots of other stuff too. But I was telling him about, or them, it's him and his wife. I was telling them about the nudges of intuition and me writing about the nudges of intuition and me being so happy when I follow them, and I've gotten a lot better at following my little nudges of intuition. He's like, "Oh yeah, but that's just you rationalizing after the fact why you did this." And I'm going, maybe, right? Maybe, but I actually don't think so. And if I if I live in this world thinking that rational is the way to go, is the only way to go, I am really, really losing out on life. It's like rational is a way to go. There are times when rational rocks. Absolutely. But it's not the only way. Everything doesn't have to be rational. Everything cannot be rational. There is more. The colors available are more than that one. We have all of them. And so for me, it makes perfect sense to talk to the plants. It makes perfect sense to ask, to sense into, to be in the field, to pick up on vibrations, to know. However, that knowing comes to you, you will know this is a good space for me to be. This is a good place for me to camp. This is a good plant for me to eat. Oh, not the leaves, but the roots. Okay, the roots. You know, for me, that is rational, but I think it probably isn't for most of the other people on the planet. Um, but it is, like you say, connection is always and already there. We don't have to do anything for it to come, but I can have lots of layers in place that stop me. I can have a lot of cognition in place that stop me from believing it, from trusting it, from thinking that it's there. Because cognitively, I can, again, talk myself out of anything, including, oh no, he probably doesn't really like me. And he's probably just doing this because, I can go on and on instead of just sensing into the fact that I can see, I can feel that Reddy's having a good time here. And I can feel that I'm having a good time here. So I'm guessing you can also feel that I'm having a good time here. You know, there we are in that field, right? It's like I do know when there's something fishy around. And my cognition can fool me into thinking that there is something. So that's why it's for me, I think maybe that's what I'm doing. Discovering the nuances, discovering how different aspects of me are communicating. What's the signal? How does cognition speak? How does intuition speak? How does bad belly how does that speak? What are the signals? And am I picking up on them? Okay, I ate that yesterday. Maybe that's not for me. Maybe I should ask next time. Is it time to eat this? It's the time to eat. Yes, it is. Okay, what do I want to eat? Ask.
Ah,
It is more fun.
yeah. It's just like it always leaves me feeling so happy. Like, it's like when the idea of where that information is coming from, where the ideas, the thoughts, the actions are springing from, the source, right? Like, I feel like a deeper form of intimacy is not just getting to know each other, but to finding that common space where we are no longer where we're no longer apart. Where I don't need to get to know you. You don't need to get to know me. Like whenever I look at the whole modern day dating mating ritual, I'm like, oh, we're gonna share our likes and dislikes, and you're gonna get to know me, and I'm gonna get to know you. It is so like I find it daft. I find it so dull and slow and droll because intimacy is knowing that we are connected. It's not knowing who each other are, but it's knowing the connection that we are one,
Mm.
right? Like it could just be two people as in a relationship. It could just be the entire universe, me feeling one with the universe or me feeling one with the person, right? But the fact is that we are one means it's not about me knowing you or you knowing me or me knowing her and she knowing me, but it's us being one, feeling and knowing deep within that we're connected. Like that's the level of intimacy that I'm desirous of. I want, right? It's just not me knowing your habits and your idiosyncrasies and your eccentricities and vice versa. I mean, like that seems rational to me. That seems just like studying each other's patterns. It's not a level of intimacy that I'm looking for. That's just Me observing patterns. Oh, like,
Mm.
if I were to go
And
into the
then
wild.
rationally comparing, do our
Yeah.
idiosyncrasies match or, oh, okay, no, headbutt, not you.
Yeah. Right? Like, this isn't doing it. If you're looking for intimacy, it's just finding that common ground where we feel connected, right? And it's a level of intimacy that I'm looking for. I want it from a human being. I want it from animals. I want it from the dogs. I want it from the plants. I want it with nature. When I look up at the sky, I want to feel that level of intimacy. I mean, like, God, because that's how connected we are, right? Like, why would I want to deprive myself and say, I just want a level of intimacy with one human being? That is my soulmate. It is such a, I feel like I'm depriving myself if I want to limit my entire conscious experience of connection to one single individual on this planet. Like, could I get, how could I deprive myself of more love than this one thing? Like, pushing all my needs, wants, responsibilities, love, connection to one individual. You're the one for me, and you're going to give me everything I want and need, and you're going to do it. You better do it. Because, like, I'm going to do the same for you. Like,
And
I,
it isn't even rational. Because that's like saying that, okay, you can only eat carrots. And but carrots doesn't actually contain everything that I need to nourish myself. I need more than what a carrot can give. Carrots are great. I love carrots. But it's like, but they're not the one and only. It's like, so how can a person be the one and only? Um, but it's like we do have a lot of either or. You have to pick him or him, her or her. You can't have both and. You have to do carrots or tomatoes. You can't do both. I really want both. Maybe different forms, different ways, different, you know, amounts, sure. Um, but we do. So it's not very rational. Um,
and it's so forced, right? It just feels like, I always feel like the, it's almost like I'm trying to force a certain interaction. And I'm just trying to find the right individual to fit that role. It's almost like I'm job hunting. Oh, so your job is to take care of my needs and wants, right? And maybe you're the good person, you're the right fit for this job, or maybe you're not. So I'm hire, fire, hire, fire. Like, it just feels like it's ridiculous, right? I mean, like, that's how it feels to me. Every time I look back and look at the whole dating ritual and processes, that's exactly how it feels. It just seems like I'm looking, job opening for soulmate, apply here, right? And come in, I do an interview, and then if things go well, all right, we'll do a probation and we'll see how this goes, and maybe we'll hit it off and blah blah blah, right? And but I feel like, the level of intimacy that we're looking for is not really in each other, but like you said, it's in that common space. So it's not me trying to find the right person, it's me letting go of this person. This person is immaterial, really. The other person is immaterial, really. Once we find that common space, it doesn't matter you, me, I, her, them, us. None of it really matters. It's just a
mm,
common space where we find ourselves connected, comfortable, compassionate, loving. We find all of that in that space. And we find that by losing ourselves, not by finding each other.
I'm guessing that can be tankespjärn for some people. But it's another way of saying that is the aspect of letting go and letting come. It's like it is when I let go. Because if I'm holding on so tight, it's like there you go again with the rigid, with the fixed. It isn't semi-permeable anymore if I hold on so tight. I have to let go. I have to open up too. Because then, you know, infinite possibility, I think you said before. It's like, yeah. because they can't be there. If I'm grasping onto you, both hands, tight fist, it's like I can't do anything else with my hands. There's nothing else for me to touch, to hug, to pick at, to sew. I can't do anything else because I'm so busy holding on. So it is a stopping of flow. It is a damming. I dam the river. Okay. Water can't go anywhere now. It's like, what then? What happens then? Mm. And that's when
Even
you
with the
get the
individual,
cricks in your neck and your back. And, it's like, yeah,
something's not right, something's not flowing, right? I
yeah,
mean, it's like
yeah,
every time I'm on a Zoom call, I'm just moving. Many a time it's preemptive. Like
yeah,
it's almost like before I feel something, I start moving. Sometimes I do it real time. When I start feeling it, I start moving. Sometimes I get stuck and then I'm like, oh, I'm stuck. And then I start moving,
yeah.
right? But then there's this, like, I feel like that's a level of intimacy I have with myself. Like I know, okay, did I do this? Like, was I able to preempt it? Was I able to intercept tension and release it even before it clogged up? Or did it happen at the same time? Or did it get stuck? Did I feel stuck up? And then finally I was like, oh no, no, I have to break free. Like that helps me understand in real time the level of intimacy I am in with myself. Right. Like that's why I love the physical realm so much in terms of feedback, because the feedback loops are instantaneous. It's very easy to get feedback constantly physically, right? Like, how am I feeling? If I have to do this mentally, I'll have to sit down. Okay, what am I doing? How is I feeling? How's my moods? How's my emotions? And I'm now starting to process. I'm using the cognitive aspect to decipher the emotional aspect, which is really, I mean, got nothing to do with aspects at all. So I'm now using one aspect to read into the other aspect. Whereas with the physical, there's no distinction. Neither the emotional nor the cognitive aspects are separated. It's just like, oh, pain. Why? Stiffness,
Mm,
tension. Why? Okay, before we discover why, let's just loosen it up. And while we're loosening it up, the why kind of finds its answer, because I was just discovering and
yeah,
playing with that common ground, that the why just popped into my head. I didn't go through a psychoanalytical process of trying to figure out what went wrong, what did I do right, and who did what to me, and when did it happen, and what did I do, and how did I react. Ooh, that's a long process, and that's going to take like years before I find any catharsis. Whereas the physical medium gives me constant feedback, and it's easier to find the common ground. Okay, we have a problem, figure out why and how and when it started along the way, but meanwhile, let's just see what we can do to make ourselves feel good now, right? And that it also brings me back into the now. Like, how can I feel good now rather than look back?
and I would think saying that to people, even suggesting to people that you should do what you can to feel good in the now. Anathema. It's like, no, because I have to do the work and I have to clean the house and I have to do the shopping and it's like, no, I can't, because we have like lives that are so not set up on the premise of that. We have lives that are set up on the premise of meeting some type of expectation that might be voiced, might not be voiced, or assumptions that might or might not be voiced. It's like, that's how we're supposed to live. It's like, that isn't how Puck the cat lives. That is not how he lives at all. That's not how your dogs and cats live. It's like, no, it is. Oh, I feel like a stretch. It is. Bladder full. Okay, out. I need to go pee. Right. Oh, but no. And it's like, I read a book. I read two books since we last talked about the Salama people up in the north of Sweden, Norway, Finland, and Russia, or the Lap people. And one of the sentences that made me think of you, I actually have written down, Reddy says, a mother tongue is not necessarily the language you speak. It can be the language that you should have been able to speak. Something like that, but in Swedish. But it made me think of you. Uh, but there was another phrase where a lady called Sofia Janok wrote in Swedish. She said, "Vi pratar aldrig om naturen, vi är den." So she's speaking about the people, the Sami people. And she says, "We never speak about nature. We are nature." Yeah. And I think that's that division where we distance ourselves. And he's like, "Oh, but we're not an animal." Guess what? It's like, yes, you are. It's like if you look at like biology and stuff, yes, we are animals. That's what we are. We're not plants. We're not fungi. We're not minerals or rocks. We're not lichen. It's like, yes, we are animals. That's the branch of life that we belong to. I was like, oh no, but we're not animal because we can't be animalistic. Yeah.
We could argue. I'd definitely argue that we ought to be more animalistic than humanistic because they seem to be living in much greater harmony
And
with themselves, so adaptive. The ones we're domesticated are living in harmony with us. The ones that are continuing to live in the wild are living in harmony with nature in the wild. They're doing a freaking great job. Like, no
yes.
matter where, in whatever environment, they are doing great job, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we are doing a messed up job in any environment. We can't survive in the wild anymore. We've become like inefficient, to live in the wild. We are out to get each other in cities. Like crime rates are skyrocketing. We're just out to get grab each other's neck. And, always looking conflict. Like road rage is like a big factor. Everyone traveling. Like
Mm.
conflict is easier than connection, right? I mean, it's just like everywhere you look, put people together, you probably see them getting into conflict more than connecting comfortably. So I mean, I just feel like we probably should be doing more animalistic things. That's one of the reasons this year I said I'm going to spend a lot of time camping. I'm going to go out in the wild, just sit there, relax, stay there, camp, move. And one of the things I took from my cats, I've been spending, the last 2 years was entirely with my cats, learning, growing, understanding the idea. And I'm glad that I have feral cats. So they never live at home. And they just come in once in a while to spend time. But there were few section of feral cats, even amongst that, who would just disappear for days at end, right? They would just disappear. I have no idea where they are. Sometimes they land up dead. They get killed in some sort of a turf war. Sometimes they get, people poison them. Sometimes they get bit by stray dogs and something happens. But some of them survive and some of them just thrive with that level of danger. They know it is scary going this, but they keep going out. They know it's dangerous. They know they're going to they're not going to get food on the regular like they would at my place, but they still go out and do stuff, right? And I realized that that's the kind of person I am. I'm not good at being domesticated. I'm happier being feathered, right? And so I'm like, okay, so this is what I'm gonna do. I mean, like, I'm just gonna give in. I've done this all my life. I mean, I've never been the kind of person who has stifled myself, just waiting to break free. I've always been out there, roaming in the wild, completely fell. And I feel like at some point of time now, I started feeling like, oh, maybe it's age. Maybe now I should like settle down. Maybe now I should become domesticated. Maybe now I should, be non-feral or less feral. And I realized that I give it a lot of thought, and it's been running in my back of my head for the last 6 months, 8 months. And I was like really entertaining the idea that maybe, okay, this is it, this is time, and blah, blah. But then I realized that all of that was the cognition. I was trying to convince myself that this is what I should be doing. right? But then
This
when I
is the
think of,
rational thing to do right now.
right? But then the natural instinct that comes out in me, because that's the kind of nature that I have as an individual, how I was born, how I've been, how I've raised, how I've been nurtured, is like this. So I have to actually put more effort to be domesticated than to be fed,
Mm.
right? And so I'm not going to make a decision based on whether this is the right thing, this is the safe thing, this is the good thing, this is the social thing, this is a sensible thing. No, I'm just going to make a decision on the basis of effort. Is it more work to be domesticated, or is it more work for me to be fed? There are many people who want to break free and say, I'm going to go travel the world, I'm going to do this, but maybe that's not their natural
Them.
instinct.
Mhm.
Maybe they have to force themselves to do that. In my case, I have to force myself to sit down one place, be a good boy, be a good citizen, do what the world tells you, do what the government tells you, do what people tell you. You know, that takes more effort. So I realized that those 6 to 8 months of cognitive thinking, trying to find the right decision making, blah, 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 was wasted effort, because when it comes to making the decision, I can make the decision based on effort needed to walk that path, right?
Yeah,
So if I walk
again, it's
this path,
you riding your wave. Mm.
and like you said, what works for one doesn't necessarily have to work for the other, right? This is
No,
comfortable.
it's
This is
your
not.
wave. It's not my wave. It's not everybody's wave. It's Reddy's wave. Yeah, yeah. I like that. Yeah, and it is interesting to hear you say this because it's like for me, I'm the dream that I had, this ninja warrior killing me with invisible knives type things, is like layers of me that I'm shedding, right? But I've come to a place where the layers that I'm shedding now, or that now seems to want to be shed, are kind of layers that I'm quite comfortable with. It's like I don't really do I really want to get rid of them? They're kind of, they're good and they work in a social context. It's like I used to have layers that was like I was glad to be rid of them. That was easier. So now I'm like, ooh, yikes. It's like, but who am I then? How will I be then? Is this me dropping a few of the domesticated layers and there's something more feral underneath here? And for me, that has not been what I've done. Let's put it that way. That's not been what I've done, right? I have been the good girl, the opposite of you. Have been the good girl. I do have kids. I do have a house. I do have a job. I've started my own firm. It's like I've done the supposed to do stuff. It's like, ugh, yikes. What if that isn't the wave of Helena? Maybe it is. Maybe me shedding these layers will still have me in kind of the same type of setting that I'm in. I don't know that, but just the thought that it might not be, it scares me. It scares me because it's like, might I not know me? Is there layers that are here that I've kind of, because I am a person who knows my memories and, it's like the stories. I've told myself this, and this so many times. Maybe it's not. It's like, ah. So who knows? Maybe I'll be a feral cat.
Yeah, I mean, like it's. I think it's like the answer may just grab you by the neck. You don't like. It's always like I always like think like in this case, I was searching for the answer. It's this
Mm.
grand hubris. I like. It's like every now and then I'm like, hubris again. It's like because it's like I have a problem. I have a conflict. I must find a solution, and I must
Mm.
struggle through this
Yeah.
hero's journey.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
emerge triumphant. What's common between all of this?
Yeah.
I,
Yeah.
I, right? And then the moment I lose the I, the answer is just standing right there. I mean, I
Yeah.
didn't have to look for it. I didn't have to do
Yeah.
anything.
Yeah. Stepping into the field.
It's amusing you're speaking about ninjas with knives. I have this knife right here on my desk. You'll see me in your dreams running behind you with a knife now.
Maybe I will. Maybe I will. That would be interesting. Yeah. And it's like it's fun with certain dreams or like there was so much resistance in me when I woke up because I actively thought I'm not going to write this one down because I don't want to remember it because it had me waking up feeling so horrible. It's like I don't want this dream. Um and of course, I then remember it perfectly without having to write it down. Go figure. So there is something, you know, again, emerging. There's something emerging. What it means, who knows? And I'm not, maybe I am, but it doesn't feel as if I'm striving for the answer or a solution. It is more, this is a playful exploration. I'm having fun. I'm playing with it, with me, with all. And I'm experiencing a lot of, for me, new experiences that been I haven't known about. I haven't had the wherewithal to try. I haven't had the help or context needed, whatever, all of them or none of them or parts of them. Um and now I am. And it is fun. It takes effort more than efforting, right? There's energy being used, absolutely, but it has the feel of the wave more than sitting down you know, in a fixed setting like that. So it does have the wave feel of it. Uh, without having any clue as to where that wave might take me. Which, is like, yeah, because
Exciting.
how could I know, you know? Uh, but it's fun. It is
Yeah,
fun. It is fun.
exciting. It's fun. And I love that you use the word explore, right? Because like this is how I clearly in my mind I'm constantly trying to figure out, am I doing this to escape from something? Am I doing this
Mm,
to explore something? So I could be going in a certain direction, but what's important is why I'm doing it. To me, it's like I could be moving towards the horizon, but am I doing this with the curiosity, with enthusiasm, with excitement, with the desire to explore? Or am I doing it in fear? There's something behind me. I want to
yeah,
escape my past. I want to run away. I need to go there. No,
yeah, yeah,
that energy is so clear, right? Like, what is it? Is it fear of something I'm running away from? So I'm trying to escape that, and I'm going to move in this direction, or am I going towards that direction out of curiosity to explore? So escape, explore, escape, explore. Every move I make, every decision I take, I'm constantly trying to figure out. But wait, is this fear driven? Is this fun oriented?
yeah. And I mean, that dream that I had was just that. It's like, here I am escaping, 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 escaping. We're trying to. And all of a sudden, I didn't say out there, I said, I flipped it around so that inside of me, there's that freedom. And Dominic was like, do you see what you just did? It isn't something outside of you anymore. It's something inside. I'm like, yeah. And then when I turned around so that I'm not trying to escape, I am. meeting what is there. That's when exploration is possible. Um, so it is, and I mean, it's this is what connection brings to me. This is what connection brings. It helps me explore. It helps me by you bringing a different perspective into my realm that makes me feel something that maybe I hadn't felt before. It's like so always going. So that is what I think that that's part of the of what I cherish with being, in the exploring what it's like to be me. Right? It's like I do so cherish the fact that here comes something, a person, whether it be a tree person, a squirrel person, a Reddy person, or a Dominic person, or Pop the cat person, something that, okay, gives me new, opens up insights or possibilities or feelings. Stepping into what it's like to be Pop for a minute. It's like, it is love. Yeah. Maybe that's a good place to end.
Yes.
Ending on kind of a little mellow. Stepping into being in contact. Which I'll just briefly say when we finished on Monday, Dominic said it's time to finish. And just as he was about to say that, a gull started beeping outside. And it was just the feeling was just that because I said, yeah, she agrees, you know, because I haven't been aware of hearing gulls that much there from that place. So it was just like, it was one of those field experiences where it's like, yes, it is time. There's more signals that yes, it is time. And it just filled me with immense gratitude. Uh, just the feeling of, oh yeah, she agrees. That's what she was saying too. It's like, it's not just Dominic. It's not just me knowing. She feels the same.
This is something I'm going to be mulling the top of my head. Is gratitude just an awareness of connection, right? Is it a reminder of connection, awareness, sudden awareness? Because gratitude is one of those emotions which is like nuclear. Like you just drop a gratitude bomb and everything else just dissipates, right? Nothing. No vengeance, no regrets, no sadness. Everything just dissipates just like that.
Mhm.
So I always think of gratitude like gratitude bombs. I'm having like a emotionally disturbed situation. Boom, drop a gratitude bomb and everything is
Yeah.
settled, right? And but I never thought about what this sensation, what this emotion of gratitude really is. But now when you said that, it got me thinking, maybe it's an awareness of connection.
Connection.
Right? And if I feel connected, what's there to complain about? What's there to feel sad about? What's there to feel bad about? What's there to feel mad about? Gratitude is like a deep sense of happiness. It's beyond happiness feels a little,
Bubblier.
frivolous and
Yeah.
playful and, on the surface, on the edge, just frothing effervescence. But gratitude is one of those deep dive emotion down. It's like it just satiates every cell in your body, and there's not a single part of your body that's feeling super high or super low. You're just in this equanimous space. Maybe that's why I feel like it's connected to that common ground because it
Mm,
feels like that common ground. Feels like what I would imagine a common ground.
mm, mm. Lovely. Well, I'm grateful for you.
Thank you so much.
Very
I'm
happy that we
so
met on
grateful we
Twitter.
could have these conversations and keep having them. It's like every time I'm like, I have no idea what we're going to talk. I mean, that's the best part. I'm so happy that you never come in with like a 10-point agenda. This is what we're going to be talking about.
Nope, none of that.
Yeah.
None of that. Yeah, it is fun. It's a fun way to be. I hope you make a great day.
Thank you. You have a lovely day ahead.
Yeah.
Next season.
Bye.
Bye.